and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for your patience. We have enough commissioners now, but to verify that, I am going to call a roll. Commissioner Fassman, are you here?
I'm here.
Commissioner Richardson, are you here?
Here.
Commissioner Killeen, are you here? Here. Commissioner Byzantiner, are you here? Here. Alderman Kennedy, are you here?
Here.
And I am present. Commissioners, has anyone reviewed the minutes from the meetings of September 2016 and October 2016? And if so, is there a motion in that regard?
I move we approve the minutes for those meetings.
Second.
During discussion, hearing none, all those in favor of approving those minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, those will be the minutes. Commissioners, have you seen the agenda? Anybody have any changes to propose to it? Note that agenda item D, which will require a roll call vote, will take us into closed session where I'm told we will discuss matters of real estate and/or litigation. And for the audience, you're welcome to stay for the formal adjournment, which will happen after that roll call, but I will clear you from the room during it. But I can tell you that I anticipate that we will do no business after agenda item D. All we will do is adjourn, but you're welcome to stay if you want. Are there any changes to the agenda? Here- Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from item B when it comes up. B is in boy.
Okay. It almost came up earlier. Yes. The developer was lobbying to move ahead of the line. I thought about it, but I knew that you would not want to do that. Okay, this will be our agenda then. Let us begin with agenda item A, 2301 South Kings Highway. Getting instructions over there, Dan?
Pardon me?
You getting instructions from your associate there?
I am.
Okay.
He's been around a lot longer than me.
Listen to him.
Yes, very wise. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here to present the first item on the agenda, 2301 South Kings Highway. This is a preliminary review proposal for the demolition, preservation, and new construction of a 2.3-acre development site bounded by South Kings Highway, Southwest Avenue, and Mechanical Avenue. The board considered a previous proposal from the developer at its August meeting. The presentation today contains significant changes from that proposal. The demolition aspect of this is key to why this proposal is being considered by the Preservation Board. According to Ordinance 64689, proposed demolitions are to be considered by the Cultural Resource Office and Preservation Board when they're within a Preservation Review District, within a National Review District. The proposal today is within both a Preservation Review District and a National Register District. So I'd like to enter Ordinance 64689 into the record. Ordinance 64689, as modified by Ordinance 64832, delineates criteria for the review of proposed demolitions in Preservation Review and National Register Districts. So I'd like to also enter that into the record as well. And finally, because some of what we're doing today relates to the preliminary review policy, I also want to enter that into the record tonight. I have some messages that I'd like to relay. I have received correspondence from both the 8th Ward Alderman Steve Conway and Christina Jackson, who is the Executive Director of the Southwest Garden Neighborhood Association, and both of their messages are quite similar. They are that neither organization or person is taking a position on this proposal we are hearing tonight. Getting some other housekeeping done. I have some other items to enter into the record. I have received copies of a neighborhood survey from folks who live in the vicinity of the project. I'd like to enter those into the record. I have letters in opposition to the proposal, which I want to enter into the record. And finally, letters in support of the proposal, which I'd like to enter into the record. And with those preliminary items out of the way, I'll go into my presentation. I'd like to begin by making a summation of the existing conditions. So this is sort of an entry picture. It shows the Southwest Bank building at the corner of Southwest and South Kings Highway. On the left side of the picture is the Kings Highway street, and on the right side is the Southwest Bank, the Southwest Avenue elevation of the Southwest Bank building. This is a site plan. We saw this the last time this item was here. The dashed area is the area in question for consideration tonight. The area shaded in blue or gray on the east side of Kings Highway is the Shaw's Garden National Register District, and the area sort of in the triangular portion that's shaded on the left side is part of the Reber Place National Register District as well. Here we are again at that corner. So I'm going to go down the block on Kings Highway showing the site itself that's under consideration for tonight. These buildings for a number of years have all been under the ownership of either Southwest Bank or successor banks, currently BMO Harris. But they were actually all built as individual developments with the exception of one that was built by Southwest Bank. So this one will be referred to in this presentation as 2307 South Kings Highway. It is a one-story commercial building built within the first 2 decades of the 20th century. Next we have this 2-story commercial building, 2319 South Kings Highway. At one point this was an auto dealership in the past. For many years it has been under the ownership of the bank, as I said. And here are some detailed shots of these buildings. You can see the terracotta panel on the left. That's on the top of the 2307 building. And to the right, you see terracotta surrounded from the 2319 building. So the buildings along the strip here have varying degrees of ornamentation, but some of them are quite interesting. The next building as we go south down the block is 2327 South Kings Highway. This is the section that was built by Southwest Bank in the 1970s to join all the buildings together. At one point, according to Sanborn maps, there was a commercial storefront building on the left and then a 2-family residential building on the right side of this opening. And as by 1970, the early 70s, they were demolished and this section constructed. This is the Kings Highway facade. We're looking at mainly here of the corner building, 2335 South Kings Highway. It's a 2-story arts and crafts commercial building. You can sort of see the Mechanical Avenue side of the building in the shadow. And here is some detail of that building. It's got some interesting arts and crafts details, a tile roof, decorative brackets, etc. Now I'd like to talk about the context of the development area and the area proposed for demolition. This is looking southwest on Southwest Avenue. On the left, as I've said 2 times already in this presentation, I think, is the Southwest Bank building. On the right is a BP station, and we're looking back. This is just looking a little further down the block on the side with the Southwest Avenue, the south side of Southwest Avenue where the bank facility is today. And this is looking across the street. Again, you see the BP station, and then the building behind that is the strip center that currently houses the Walgreens that we will be discussing in some depth tonight. This is a view looking north on Kings Highway, on South Kings Highway, towards where the bridge reconstruction is taking place. Here we're looking at the library building, kind of catty corner across the street, looking kind of down Vandeventer on the east side of Kings Highway. Further south, you can see across the street, kind of in the foreground, is a bungalow. That's the furthest west house on the north side of Tower Grove Place, which is a street that runs perpendicular to Kings Highway and the redevelopment site and the demolition site that we're looking at tonight. And then this is looking at the south side of Tower Grove Place. And now we're looking south towards Tower Grove Park, which will be a couple blocks down on the left. On our immediate right is that two-story arts and crafts building I was referencing earlier. This building is across the street from that building at the corner of Botanical and Kings Highway. We're going further down the Botanical Avenue on the south side of the street. The site under consideration tonight is on the right-hand side of this picture. You can kind of barely see the fence that surrounds the site. And here's a little further west on the south side of the Botanical again, continuing down that same street. And we kind of cross the street here. The fence again is for the site we're looking at tonight, and then there's residential buildings on the north side of Botanical going west. And moving now kind of further east along Botanical back towards Kings Highway, we can see the backs of the buildings proposed for consideration tonight. Before I go into the well, let me talk about the redevelopment proposal and the demolition proposal. So here you see the site plan, the building up at the building up at the corner there is the BMO Bank building. The Walgreens is down from that, and then at the bottom of the picture is the building, the two-family that's proposed, the two-story building rather, that's proposed for redevelopment. Along the southwest avenue side, at the top of the picture is the proposed one-story commercial building. And you'll see more detail about this in a moment. So here we are again at that same sort of iconic corner. You've got the redeveloped bank building. Then to the left of that along Kings Highway is the site of the 2307 building that I was mentioning earlier. And then the Walgreens, the 2307 building is demolished, of course, in this case, and it is a screen for the parking that will be behind it that serves both the BMO building and the Walgreens. Then we've got the Walgreens itself and the curb cut that is where the 1970s addition is now. And then finally, the far end of the development on Kings Highway is the two-story commercial building. On the right-hand side, you'll see kind of in the background the new commercial building on Southwest Avenue. We'll get better views of that in a moment. So, so this is the redeveloped BMO building. Screening for the parking with the facade of 2307 retained. The Walgreens built into the facade, which will be retained with the current 2319 building. Here is the gap where there will be a curb cut with ingress and egress to the site. And then finally, we have this two-story commercial building at the end. Right there. This is a view of the streetscape of the Walgreens. And then you've got the facade screening at the old 2307 building adjacent to that, to the right. Finally, I wanted to wrap up the pictures by showing the Walgreens that's there now. I think it's clearly seen better days. I think the design of the new Walgreens is far superior to that, and it's up at the street in a much more urban fashion. Oh, and then along Southwest Avenue, so here we have the new commercial building that's proposed, which will help sort of redevelop or assist in asserting the streetscape along Southwest Avenue. In the previous proposal that the board saw, this building was placed in the middle of the parking lot and not up at the street. And just more views, that's the current 2307, 2319, the new Walgreens building. This building would be demolished for the access and egress. And then that's the street and Southwest. So What I'd like to do next is just summarize the staff recommendation and then go into the criteria. The staff recommendation is to approve the demolition of two merit structures, 2307 South Kings Highway and 2319 South Kings Highway, and the non-merit 2327 South Kings Highway. Based upon the redevelopment plan that's submitted, often we get demolition proposals and the proposal for reuse is just a seeded lot. In this case, it's a much more complex and robust proposal. There's a proposal to rehabilitate the corner buildings, 2301 South Kings Highway, that's the iconic Southwest Bank building, and to rehabilitate 2335 South Kings Highway, that's the two-story building at Botanical. That building will be rehabilitated and donated to the Tower Road Neighbors Community Development Corporation. One of the new aspects of this proposal I think is very exciting is the preservation of the South Kings Highway facade of 2319 as the front facade for the Walgreens. And finally, as you saw, the new single-story commercial building is moved up to the street. So let's look at the criteria for from the ordinance we're looking at. I'd like to briefly go through the criteria because there's really 2 or 3 items here that are quite salient, and the rest of them are not as relevant to this proposal. So the first aspect is whether or not there's a redevelopment plan calling for either the demolition of these buildings or the preservation of these buildings, and there's no such redevelopment plan. So that is not a relevant criteria here. Under architectural quality, this is something that's left over from the last staff recommendation. 4 of the 5 storefronts along there, in our judgment, are merit buildings. The only one that's not is the 1970s addition, and that is coming directly from the National Register District nomination, and that was approved in 2011. Under condition, according to the ordinance and just in general, these buildings are sound. I haven't heard any argument from either side of this debate as to whether or not these buildings are sound. Under neighborhood effect or use potential, the area surrounding the site contains few, if any, boarded up or dilapidated buildings, which is a testament to all the hard work folks have been doing for the last 30 years in this neighborhood to make it as vital as it is. The developer submitted an analysis that the buildings are not economically feasible for redevelopment. Preservation Board saw that last time. That was presented in evidence last time. That did not include the use of tax credits as a means to make that proposal like that more viable. And I have not seen any revised information with tax credits. So I'll just leave that at that. Under urban design, the demolitions will affect the rhythm of the street. Taking out the 1970s building, while it's not a contributing building to the National Register District, does contribute to the sort of completeness of that streetscape, and its loss will be noticed. Under proposed subsequent construction, and this really forms the basis of the staff recommendation, there have been significant efforts to improve the quality of the streetscape design since the last proposal, and I will go into those in a moment. The final criteria that's relevant here is commonly controlled property. And the ordinance reads, if a demolition application concerns property adjoining occupied property, and if common control of both properties is documented, favorable consideration will generally be given to appropriate reuse proposals. So, in staff analysis, I feel that this is an appropriate reuse proposal. The site is owned by BMO Harris and Draper and Kramer, and the property is under control of one entity. So now that we've kind of gone over the most basic aspects of those criteria, I'd like to dive into 2 or 3 of them that I think are really the salient ones regarding this proposal. The first one is under architectural quality. And the ordinance states that demolition of merit or qualifying structures shall not be approved except in unusual circumstances which shall be expressly noted. And I really think this is the most important criteria in the ordinance, quite honestly. In the staff recommendation that was published online, it was sent to all the Preservation Board members. That's made explicit what those criteria are, but I will read them. The unusual circumstances are the proposal calls for the rehabilitation of the original iconic Merit structure for Southwest Bank at the corner of Southwest and Kings Highway. It also calls for the rehabilitation of the Merit structure at 2335 South Kings Highway with the building paid for by D.N.O. Harris, with the building donated to the neighborhood. And that may be the first time such an activity has taken place in a proposal to the Preservation Board. The proposal calls for the rehabilitation of the historic facade at 2319 South Kings Highway for use by a national pharmacy retailer. This has never been done in St. Louis. I think we've all, those of us who've lived in St. Louis for a long time, have we ever really seen a compatible Walgreens? It's hard to do. And in this case, we have a Walgreens moving into a historic storefront. It is a demolition, but frankly, the other three facades of that building, I do not consider to be historically significant or very important. What's important is the part that addresses the street. And that is, I think, a game changer in how these proposals will be reviewed in city historic districts and in general around the city where there's an opportunity to do design review. The proposal takes a lightly used back office facility, which it is now, with one bank, a small bank branch, and adds to that streetscape retail, commercial, and office uses that will enliven it. I feel like right now when you look at these buildings, they kind of just disappear into the landscape by taking the paint off of them, by fixing up their facades, the ones that are proposed for being fixed up, and that's 3 of the 4 Merit structures. I feel the streetscape will be greatly enhanced. The proposal maintains the urban form of the streetscape. The site is currently under common ownership, and while I'm not a big fan of surface parking lots, the parking lot is adjacent to the commercial and the bank buildings, and per the ordinance, there is sort of dispensation made for when parking is adjacent to and abuts properties that will actively use the parking. So those are the unusual circumstances, and I think they're significant. Under the condition criteria, it says sound structures with apparent potential for adaptive reuse or resale shall not generally be approved for demolition unless the application of the following criteria indicate that demolition is appropriate. And there are 4 of the items further down the list that this reflects. One is a redevelopment plan. As I said earlier, there is no redevelopment plan either supporting the demolition of these buildings or opposing the demolition of these buildings. Under architectural quality, the next aspect of it, the combination of the full rehabilitation of 2 buildings and the maintenance of the South Kings Highway streetscape through the reuse of the 2319 facade for Walgreens and the 2307 as a screening for the parking. I feel like despite the loss of the building from the 1970s, you're still getting a high-quality streetscape design in this case. The third of those 4 criteria in that section of the ordinance deal with proposed subsequent construction. I just spoke to that it rehabilitates 2 Merit buildings and reuses a key facade at 2319 South Kings Highway, and it adds some more building fabric along the Southwest Avenue side of the development proposal. And finally, the other of those 4 criteria is commonly controlled property. The property is under common ownership, and that section of the ordinance references the zoning is currently zoned F, where drugstores are allowed. While this would require conditional use permits for some aspects of it, the basic use of this building is allowed under the zoning code, so I feel it is compatible that way. The final criteria that I think is relevant is proposed subsequent construction, and this is the most broad of the ones in terms of reviewing them. The proposed subsequent construction would equal or exceed the contribution of the structure integrity of the existing streetscape or block. There's a lot of building rehabilitation going on along this street, and while I don't particularly like the loss of the 2307 building, I feel on balance the streetscape will be more lively because of the way the buildings are used along with the rehabilitations that are being kept and the facades that are being retained. So for findings and conclusions, I just want to read these into the record very quickly. The Cultural Resources Office, consideration of the criteria for demolition led to these findings. 4 of these buildings are merit buildings. They are sound in terms of the ordinance. The developers supplied cost estimates that indicate that the return on them would not justify the rehabilitation of all buildings. However, that cost estimate does not include historic tax credits. The curb cut and driveway will negatively affect the urban character of the streetscape, but the other buildings that are reused and retained, I think, will make up for that with their with the upgrades to those that will come from the investment in them. Finally, I've already mentioned the unusual circumstances, so I won't repeat that. Based on those preliminary findings, my recommendation to the Preservation Board is that preliminary approval be granted to this proposal, and that no demolition permits be approved if that takes place, unless the streets department is signed off on curb cuts, the conditional use permits that are necessary are dealt with and granted. There needs to be consultation with the Cultural Resources Office. I've always spoken to the developer about that. There are design details on those buildings that I think don't really affect how we review them today, but certainly I think require attention. And then finally, that they should obtain their building permits before they seek their demolition permits. The one thing I really don't want to have happen here is this building gets, the proposal for some reason goes away, and we all have seen that happen before, but the demolitions happen anyway. So that concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions.
Commissioners on the chatty side? Commissioners on the quiet side? To be clear on what you're recommending, do your conditions apply to the demo permit or to the demo permit and the building permit?
Well, we had an interesting circumstance recently where a building I might have liked to have preserved was granted a building permit before we got the demolition permit. It shows me that that can happen, and I feel like I want to see a permit granted for the proposal that reflects conversations with the staff post this meeting, and also reflects what was shown to you all before I would want to sign off on a demolition permit.
Is that correct, Commissioners? Thank you. Okay, we have a full house this evening. We will work through the house patiently. Let's begin with the applicant, John Burse. Welcome, John.
Would you hear yourself, or should I run it for you?
Can I do it from there? Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
John, I will give you some latitude if you have brought experts or others that you wish to speak. When you're finished, you can call them in the order that you want. Otherwise, we will go down the list.
Sounds good.
Commissioners will know that this is the earliest John Burse has been to the Preservation Board. I know, that's good.
All right, well, good afternoon, Preservation Board. My name is John Burse. It's a pleasure to join you this afternoon. I've been engaged by the applicant to help advise on urban design, and I think what we have here is a really great presentation, a really great proposal. But one thing about it, I think that's really important, has been the community engagement behind it, and that's represented by numerous meetings over a long period of time. And I think one of the stories about this project is it's an example of how engagement and passion and energy can really evolve a proposal, and I think it's also a testament to a great team to listen and want to advance something to be, in this case, a best practice for urban design and redevelopment. So these were meetings that were conducted really from the spring onward, and I'm not sure if you have these letters introduced by Mr. Krasnoff, but it's been seconded by really neighborhood input as well. This is a note from Sandra Gerbach, who writes, "I feel BMO Harris has worked diligently with the Southwest Garden Neighborhood Association. The bank and the developer have made numerous attempts to meet with surrounding neighbors in order to address resident concerns. BMO Harris and the developer, Draper and Kramer, have changed the plans on multiple occasions in order to comply with these concerns." And I think that's a really significant piece. And you'll see a little bit of that evolution tonight from the last time this was presented. This is also a letter from Nancy Heitschuh, who writes, "BMO Harris has held a number of meetings and has made many changes based on public input. Most significantly, keeping, repairing, and refurbishing the facade and using non-usable buildings and reducing the curb cuts to only one rather than the original two." So, again, I really think this demonstrates the value of community input and as well the willing ears of a great development team to want to advance a vision and want to do something really special. So with that community engagement, the last time you saw this project, this was the proposal, and it envisioned demolishing a lot more and having quite a bit more curb cuts within that design. You can see we had 2 curb cuts along Kings Highway, and then the missing buildings between the bookended building to the very south and to the Kings Highway Southwest intersection. And what we heard in August from the Preservation Board was a deep concern with the demolition of the 3 Merritt buildings, the streetscape disruption of all those curb cuts, and then, quite honestly, the concern over the Walgreens design. I think Mr. Krasnoff really touched on it. Many of us that have been long-term passionate advocates of the city and design, it's always a concern when a piece of architecture that is loved by everyone goes away. The question is what we're getting back in its place a better thing. So with that feedback, we really took a step back, the team took a step back and thought, how could this story be, given all the passion and concern for it, really a message of positive transformation. And we looked at a number of examples across the country, precedents for how this kind of development can be a good neighbor to historic preservation and urban design. This is one example of a project in New Orleans, an adaptive reuse of a building. This is actually not a historic building, it was new construction. This was the before photo of that building, and this development turned it into a project that looked like this, which I think everyone would agree would be a good neighbor to any historic neighborhood. And the story of what happens in something like this is that a building like this ends up being a good neighbor with an historic fabric, but ends up being a brand new building to attract the kind of commercial vibrancy that Mr. Krasnoff spoke of in his presentation. So how can this proposal be a really positive transformation? And then there are other examples really across the country that are terrific. This might be the grandest Walgreens ever. This is an adaptive reuse of a historic building in Chicago. Flagship store, an absolutely stunning example at the far end of the spectrum of what could be done. Now, as a passionate advocate for the city, I think we've all felt the desire to see the bar raised in these kinds of developments. And so with that, the proposal that we have tonight is something that really is innovative in St. Louis for the city and the region for this kind of development. As Mr. Krasnoff indicated, the proposal is to reuse these existing street elevations. These are the elements of the building that are historically significant, and behind that gets incorporated a new building, a new commercial development, and the vibrancy that comes with that. And as well, no loss of merit contributing buildings. So where has this been done? This is a great example, also in Central Time, up in Chicago, where a historic building elevation was stabilized and the interior of the building removed and opened up to become a new Walgreens. And this is the kind of precedent that this proposal aspires to do here at this site, to be a best practice and to raise the bar. and a little bit of a detailed shot of, how carefully crafted and considered this proposal will be and aspires to be. And I know with staff review and the commitment of this team, we'll get to that point. So to review the kind of previous proposal in contrast to where we're at, this is the old site plan. The red lines demark the amount of historic building facade that was being maintained in the previous proposal back in August. This new site plan diagram, site plan, depicts what's being maintained. It's almost a 300% increase of historic building elevation. That street wall will be much more significantly intact. You can also see in this proposal the reduction of the curb cuts from 2 along Kings Highway to 1, so a 50% reduction. We've completed an assessment of the traffic along Kings Highway and believe that this curb cut, on the basis of that assessment, is within best practices. And then finally, as Mr. Krasnoff indicated, the movement of that restaurant parcel site in the middle, surrounded by a sea of parking, up to Southwest Avenue, so that it can be a positive, pedestrian-friendly building within that streetscape, and try to continue the block face along that is also an advance of the site plan. So we think these are really good ingredients. And as we touched on before, here are some views that depict that. So this is looking east along Southwest Avenue. You can see in the foreground the positioning of that restaurant. So it's a pedestrian-friendly restaurant. It's not hidden behind a wall of parking. The aerial view along Kings Highway, as was touched on. A lot of details in this project, but restoring the original brick and just the power and continuity of those elevations being maintained, and then the idea of plugging in behind that a brand new modern building, but maintaining that loved historic streetscape along Kings Highway. And then closing in on that, I think one of the things that's really significant about 2319 is that there's a beautiful building there, and it's waiting to have a little bit of polish and a little bit of sparkle brought back to it. Its terracotta detailing is I think, really remarkable. It evokes a sense of Spanish Renaissance, and bringing that back to a level of vitality, I think, is an important attribute of this project. So why approve this project? 5 reasons that we want to just reinforce tonight. We're returning an underutilized commercial property back to an appropriate, vibrant use. We're maintaining nearly 3 times more historically and architecturally significant building elevations. This is the backdrop, these facades of the city that we know and love. A dramatically improved site plan, improved pedestrian realm, and fewer curb cuts. It takes out of play a suburban car-dominated Walgreens and opens it up for potential for it to be pedestrian-oriented development. I think we would all agree this is not a contributing building. And then finally, this project really raises the bar for urban design and similar projects across our city and region. We know there'll be more projects like this. Wouldn't it be great to have this project as a precedent to rely on in areas of review and use that to really raise the bar of future projects? So with that, I just want to reinforce, I know there's a lot of passionate perspectives in the room. I think this has been a great story of how that perspective has raised the bar, and exemplary of how a development team has listened and really put something forth that is quite remarkable. And I'll answer any questions that board members might have at this point.
Commissioners on the quiet side of the room? Commissioners on the not quiet side of the room?
I guess kind of a construction question. This is a facade with nothing behind it but cars. Is that right? The parking is right behind it? So I guess two-part question. How is that built? How does it stay up? And then do we see through the windows to the cars? Are there windows there?
Good question. There will be bracing that will stabilize that facade. That will be part of the kind of permanent structure within that. It is screening the cars behind it, and we're looking at a number of details that we want to really work out with staff in terms of what goes in those openings. Everything from a spandrel glass panel to there might be a wrought iron panel that evokes the kind of Spanish Renaissance style and be sympathetic to the style of buildings. I think those are the kind of details, Commissioner, that we really want to look at and examine once the project is approved.
But you are maintaining the existing facade, you're not tearing it down and rebuilding?
That is correct. The existing facade is maintained with its terracotta detailing and masonry intact.
John, I'm used to driving by there and seeing it white. Why is it not white anymore?
Well, I think in a project like this, the opportunity to take a step back and carefully, thoughtfully consider what was the building historically. The paint was not an original element of it, and I think it really illustrates the care and consideration that this team has toward restoring the elegance of the street corner. So, taking that paint off, restoring the luster of what was here, and part of that is removing that paint.
Is there anybody from your team you'd like to speak?
We're good.
Okay.
We're good at the moment. There's a number of folks, Mr. Chairman, that have signed up, but I think we'll take them
We'll get to them as we
in
proceed.
order. Yeah,
Patrick Brown?
thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, thank you for giving me a little time this evening. My name is Patrick Brown. I am Chief Resilience Officer for the City of St. Louis, working in the Mayor's office. I've been there for nearly almost the last 8 years, so a significant period of time. And through that period of time, Walgreens, CVS's, gas stations have all been, frankly, a real pain in the butt. They come in and they have a certain style that they prefer to build here. And here is important. And this was honestly not that different to begin with. This came to the mayor's office, I think, through advice. Hey, this is a historic building. You probably want to run this design past the mayor's office and see if this is something that they feel is doable. And it was not. It was garbage, as a matter of fact, just to be honest with you. The original design was not good. It was set back, it was car-oriented, they were trying to demolish significant amounts of historic building. And I think the BMO Harris team and Mr. Augusto could testify to the lack of responsiveness that they received from us. This is not going to work. The only way this is going to work is if you do this in an urban context, if you respect the historic building that you purchased. You purchased a historic building that matters. And just because, it's complicated or perhaps more expensive than you would prefer, it doesn't excuse you from the responsibility of respecting the context with which you are trying to expand or operate your business. And to my delight, I would be what I think most would call a building hugger. As a millennial, I feel quite, I feel grieved that we've lost much of the historic building fabric that makes St. Louis a great place to live. It's one of our most competitive advantages to other cities of our size and scale in the Midwest, is the historic nature of our buildings. And I think we roll over too quickly for the first swipe at something different or new. And this is, I think, arguably a wonderful example of what it looks like when you don't do that. Everything that you see, everything that I happily see, is more or less something that was said couldn't be done in the beginning. Couldn't do that, it won't fit. That's really not our model. It's too expensive, et cetera, et cetera. And through more due diligence, through poking and prodding and connecting this developer and this team with, I think, thoughtful people who share, I would say, everyone in this room's belief that our context and our historic building stock is important, we have a much improved project. And I think Mr. Burse and Mr. Krasnoff took many of the things that I was going to say this evening. But I think most importantly, what was said is that this is precedent for nipping in the bud any future development that comes in of this type that says, yeah, we really can't do that. It's not possible to put a Walgreens in that space. It's not possible to push this up to the street. It's not possible to reorient our parking or perhaps have less parking than we prefer because our square footage proposals and our calculations say that this is what we need in order to maximize our profit. It is possible if you care enough and if you want to be in St. Louis. And we see it being possible in other places all the time. And it's about time that we make sure it's possible here and that we do it here. And I think this is an example of that. This is precedent for any future Walgreens where we have a trigger or a catch to say, you know what, that's not a good design. And it's easy for you to do that. It's more economical for you to do that. But it actually doesn't help us out. There's a Walgreens down the street. And there's a Walgreens 3 blocks down the street from that one. We don't need more Walgreens. We don't. But we are going to have Walgreens. One exists across the street now. It is an example of not great urban design. It's also old. It's going to close at some point, and this is me being, I guess, looking a bit down the line. At some point, they'll want to remodel that, and I don't know that we have the zoning or code wherewithal to make sure that that's not done in a similar way that it is now. Here we have a trigger, we have a catch to make sure that whatever future development that takes place is done well. And so with that, the mayor is asking that I come here today, express his interest that you vote favorably in this project. And I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
Questions on the chatty side?
Well, the Walgreens that's on Southwest across the street, they're not related at all to the Walgreens franchise that was proposed? I mean, I assume not.
That I don't know. My presumption is they are connected, and that with the opening of this Walgreens or the closing of that Walgreens, but we know that like gas stations and Walgreens, once the model reaches a certain age, they demolish it and rebuild it. And I think if that's going to occur, it's likely it's going to occur. This is a way to make sure we get a better product out of the deal.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Richard Robertson? We have many, many, many people who would like to speak tonight. So if the earliest people would try to be memorable, later people can look backwards and say, just what that guy said. So the burden is on you, sir,
All right.
to be memorable.
You put a big load on me. I'm a recent resident in the city and live in the Botanical Heights area.
What is your address?
4173 Blaine.
Thank you. Proceed.
I am very happy to support this proposal. When I saw the pictures at the bank, which is my bank, it was very exciting for me. And to think that there may be additional development in the area, that's also just icing on the cake. I think the design highlights the buildings that were there, and from what has been said previously, I can see that an awful lot of work has gone into this proposal over time and modifying it, and I think they've done an excellent job. Everyone I've spoken to in my area, Botanical Heights, and we're new construction people in their new houses, everyone is excited about this development. And so I would just add my support to that. Thank you for all the diligence that all of you have put in, and your staff as well. I'm anxious to see this proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Jackson?
Yes, my name is Alan Jackson. I live at 4927 Reber Place. Now, Reber Place is about 4 blocks south of this development. perpendicular to Kings Highway. So, again, I operate a Jackson County business in the Southwest Garden neighborhood. I am a member of the board for the Southwest Garden Neighborhood Association, but I'm not here at the request of the board. I'm just here on my own behalf. So again, just to declare myself, I do have various bank accounts with BMO Harris Bank, but I also bank with other banks in the Southwest and in the city of St. Louis. So it's not like I have a preference for this bank over any bank. But I am a member of the Southwest Garden community. And again, I like to see a healthy business climate for our neighborhood businesses. I've examined the plans that BMO Harris has presented, and I think the renovation of the bank building would present an attractive entrance to the hill as well as to the Southwest Garden area. Now, I've walked through the building complex and I witnessed the fact that there's a lot of empty offices. So I support the bank in turning this unused office area into a Walgreens and to allowing the additional restaurant location in our area. As I said, I also live in the Southwest Garden community, and on my street, let me just say that it's virtually impossible to turn left on the Kings Highway during any business day. So again, traffic patterns in the city can be cumbersome. I drive 5 blocks out of my way if I want to go north, and I just think it's part of living in the city. So I firmly endorse the plans by BMO Harris Bank to renovate the buildings at the corner of Kings Highway and Southwest Avenue. Thank you.
Jesse Weiss. Hello.
Hello. I grew up on Southwest Avenue. I currently live in the Carondelet neighborhood, but
What's your address?
1129 Belle Reve Boulevard.
Good.
So I grew up, my mother still lives on Southwest Avenue. I frequented Southwest Bank a lot. At first, when we heard this plan, I was very much against it, but I am really happy with the progress that has been made, the improvements, the amount of historic streetscape that's going to be kept. I think it's important to keep this building, and we don't have a lot of people coming forward to spend millions of dollars to do that in such a historic fashion. And I think the effort being made by BMO Harris should be commended for wanting to do that and to involve the community so much. I've been in a lot of those meetings that were up on the board, and I'm happy to see that progress. I'm also happy to see the other Walgreens go away. It's on Southwest Avenue currently. And I think this is a good way to, like the previous speaker said, there's always going to be Walgreens, and this gives us an opportunity to have one that's really walkable and urban and something nice to look at. And hopefully something else can be developed where that ugly Walgreens is. So, thank you.
Thank you. Chris Jackson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much. Hello, my name is Christina Jackson. I go by Chris, if you know me as a friend. I serve part-time.
What is your address?
My address, sir, 5927 Reaver Place.
Thank you.
And I live with that guy in the corner over there.
Do you want him to come up now?
No. I serve part-time as director of the Southwest Garden Neighborhood Association, but I'm speaking today as a private citizen, not as a representative of the organization. I am also a private investor with several properties in the neighborhood. Since April, as you all know, there have been many discussions and meetings regarding the BMO Harris Bank proposal. Along the way, there has been a passionate outpouring of opinions. Each individual, whether in agreement with the proposal, as well as those who do not, I believe are acting in good faith. Each individual acting in good faith has concerns about the future well-being of our neighborhood. So keeping with that spirit, I would like to share with you 2 reasons why I think this proposal is best for the future well-being of our neighborhood. Reason number 1, BMO Harris Bank's attempts to engage the community. The bank has gone through numerous public engagement efforts, as you've already heard and seen, which has resulted in multiple revisions from the beginning to compromise and conform with the requests of the local community. Under the current plan, the only property to be fully demolished is that 1970 building and in the historic district and does not have historic significance. I'm very excited to hear that the historic corner building at Kings Highway Botanical will be completely renovated and donated to the Tower Grove Neighborhood Community Development Corporation. The other two facades between the corner buildings of Southwest and Botanical will be preserved in this latest plan. I'm very excited about that, which appears, and now I know as fact, that it is a first for Walgreens in the St. Louis region, and will hopefully set a new standard of development in the city. With the preservation of the facades, we are going to be able to continue to enjoy the symmetry of the bank buildings. The bank will be able to take those non-usable buildings, renovate, and refurnish them into a facade while reducing the curb cut on Kings Highway to 1 rather than to 2. So reason number 2. I'm speaking about fairness today. Like I've said before, I believe that all the neighbors sitting here, like myself, are of good heart. We may not see eye to eye. However, I think we can all agree it is important to be fair and respectful to one another. I am not totally sure that has happened along the way. Case in point. Recently, I have reached out to local business owners and residents in the surrounding neighborhood. I was very surprised to learn that some individuals did not want to come forward to make public their opinion for fear of negative backlash either to their home or a decrease in their customer base. To be truthful, I was startled by these comments. You know, it made me wonder who or what groups of people are using these kind of tactics that are unfair. Is that acting in fairness? I believe it is important to be fair to both property owner and to local citizens. The corner of Southwest and Kings Highway is private property, and although it's important for BMO Harris to work to protect the historical character of our neighborhood and its buildings, we also need to be fair to the property owner. As a real estate investor and a private citizen with a concerned voice, let's all be fair and considerate to the importance of the future economic sustainability of our neighborhood. I believe that a strong, economically vibrant business community among our residential areas is a big plus. Is it really fair to the next generation of property owners if BMO Harris Bank pulls out and we have yet another vacant, crumbling building in our great city? Some may say that we don't need another Walgreens, but I could think of many businesses that we don't want in that location either. BMO Harris has been a strong supporter of the local community, and I like the proposal which they have made. To conclude, I'm in favor, and thank you so much for your time.
I will just remind everyone who intends to speak tonight that we are in fact the Preservation Board. We are not neighborhood umpires, and I will have a relatively limited appetite for discussion that goes beyond the scope of the ordinances that we're considering. Jerry Basie. Was that even close to your name?
Hi, my name is Jerry Basie. I live at 4921 Columbia Avenue. I also was formerly the owner of 4924 Botanical Avenue and interest in 4926 as well as 4922 Botanical. I'll tell you that I know the rehab of 4924 Botanical was a $70,000 project. 4926 was almost a $100,000 project, so I certainly have invested in the neighborhood. I love the neighborhood, it's fantastic. I'm here to largely speak on the economic viability of the neighborhood and of the plan. And let's point out, first of all, that it's not our responsibility to assure that BMO Harris, Draper Kramer, and Walgreens have a great bottom line. That's not our responsibility. We're here about the bank buildings that we all like. I was trying to find my old baseball shirt, Southwest Bank baseball team, but didn't find it. I would have worn it. It is our responsibility not to give sections of our city away that then become a largely suburban streetscape. I point out that within 2 miles of that location, we have the largest employer in Missouri, BJC Health. We have the second largest employer in Missouri, SSM Health. We have the fourth largest employer, Washington University. We have the new Cortex District. We have SLU-Med, who is going to merge with another medical company. They're all within 2 miles of that location. To say that if this project didn't go through, that corner would sit undeveloped is a ludicrous statement. Had anyone known that development was going to happen here, many other developers could have been involved that are local that have a much broader vision of what could go there than a Walgreens. I have no objection to a Walgreens. It could go on the first floor of a different sort of building. Look at what's going on in the West End with Opus Construction. They built that beautiful building there in the corner of Euclid and West Pine. It's a big building. Probably wouldn't go there, but it's residential, it's commercial, it's set back so you can have sidewalk. It's well considered, and it's not a suburban Walgreens. In about 2009, I believe, there was about $800,000 grant that was got for Van Venter's streetscape. The city put up 20% matching. It's a beautiful, walkable, it's got plants now all along the corridor from Kings Highway to the donut shop area there at Shaw. There's another grant that could be awarded for the very section that we're talking about, and this Walgreens would interfere with that project substantially. I echo Mr. Brown's sentiment that purchasing a historic building does not grant you the right to demolish it. The respect for the neighborhood and the cohesiveness of the neighborhood has to be considered. So I'm not against development. None of us are against development. We're just against a development that doesn't consider that what we really need is residences. We need owner-occupied residences that lessens crime. It increases the eyesight in the neighborhood. People that would live there wouldn't necessarily need a car. There are these young millennials that they bicycle commute now. So there are plenty of other proposals that could have been considered had there been a request for proposal. That would have been what I would call community involvement and engagement. And I once again remind us that we are the preservation board hearing, not the demolition board hearing. So I believe that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. And I think that the buildings as they stand still have economic viable potential. You don't have to just leave one corner of a four-sided building. One side is not, that's not rehab, that's facade and facade only. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Barrow.
I'm Ed Barrett, I'm sure the oldest one in the room as always. I was actually born and raised in the Southwest Garden neighborhood area. As a matter of fact, I was in the first graduating class of the new Holy-Innocents School. I went first years to Nolan and then to Newman. I was in the 43 class. So I've lived here 36 years, and then I've worked here serving the area for 58 years. there have been a small number of people that have shown their opposition to this proposal. I think after more than 80 years, I have a good pulse of the feeling of many of the people in this community. Out of more than 4,000 people in this community, based on feedback I have received from so many residents, coming to the bank, seeing pictures, asking the questions, once they knew the facts, they certainly showed a strong favorability to this program. So they feel strongly, in my opinion, the average person, and there's 4,000 of them in this area. Many of them come to the bank all the time. And they showed their definite view in favor of this project and what it will do for the neighborhood and for the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Lloyd Wright?
If I may, I'll just stand here. My name is Floyd Wright. I was in favor of the proposal. Originally, I was against it whenever in April when the others came around, because we didn't have any good input about what was going on. Then we started meeting with the board of Vigo Harris, and eventually they were going to demolish everything and just put a Walgreens on the corner. Then they changed their position to have the corner restored. Then later, the other corner was restored. Thank you. And I was very, very happy with the development, with the evolution. And so I'm very happy now with the latest facade improvement. And so, as a long-time member of the bank, or patron of the bank, I support it. I do know that some of the neighbors don't, but I certainly do, and I thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
If you ever hand a microphone to anybody again, I'm going to hit you with it. Well, we all heard that time, at least, though. Jim Reed?
Appreciate this opportunity. My name is Jim Reed. I'm an architect. I've lived on Tower Grove Place for 41 years, and I'm here to oppose the project.
What is your address on Tower Grove?
I'm sorry, 4607. I find it hard to believe that the Reber Place Historic District and the St. Louis City Preservation Board have been put in place to enable an owner-developer to move a Walgreens store just 100 feet across the street, demolish 3 buildings of a historic nature as its building pad, add dangerous curb cuts to a major St. Louis artery, and abandon 2 current Walgreens buildings within 6 blocks of this site. But here we are. This is the most 4th submittal to the board, and I still ask, what are the benefits of the project to this historic district? It seems like an incessant shell game. B&O keeps moving the entry exits and toying with the package wrapping on one facade as if it were a tab to clothing on a paper doll. But the 2 elements with the most deleterious neighborhood impact, east vehicular access from Kings Highway and demolishing 3 buildings, never changes. B&O alone, no one else has demanded these destructive features in every design publicly presented. from number 33 back in July, and there were some earlier than that, up until the present day design, including the design that was denied by this board in August by a 4-to-1 vote. BMO is adamant about this. On August 12th, BMO publicly stated at a major brands auditorium that without this eastern entry points in Kings Highway, the project would die. So it's a fixed given, there's no alternative. Do I have the first?
Sure.
This is the current streetscape right now along Kings Highway. You've seen these photos, but this is one taken from the south, looking north at Botanical, where there's the corner buildings being donated. The one being demolished is the one-story building immediately next to it with 5 bays, 5 awnings. And I guess one question I would have just looking at it, does the non-contributing building look like a sore thumb begging to be torn down? Or does it look like an active player in the streetscape community? In the continuity of the current facade, it looks like it fits. The Missouri Department of Natural Resources staff doesn't agree that a building cannot be an active part of the successful streetscape merely because its construction date labels it as non-contributing. I'll also note while you're looking at this photo that the tree that's closest to the building being demolished, that 10 feet closer to the corner is where Walgreens' new exit is going to be. Very close to the corner, and ask yourself, if you're sitting in the lane ready to make a left turn on the Botanical, how where you are of that exit going to be? It's 50 to 60 feet away. The cars coming out of it are being hidden by the corner building, which is being donated to Tower Grove Neighborhood CDC. Slide, please. This slide, to make a long story short, the red car coming out is coming off of Tower Grove Place, where all the residents live, but a lot of people in our neighborhood use our block for access to southbound Kings Highway. That street is directly across from the Walgreens' new proposed exit. We've already got issues. I won't go beyond it right now. Let's just go to the next. Walgreens site plan usually just shows you the site. You barely see the streets around it. I tried to give you a view of a little more of the community, just to define and look at how people get to this site. The demolition that BMO is requesting is predicated on having a curb cut on Kings Highway. Not that there's any real data to support that they need an entrance on Kings Highway. I think this is some visual data that shows it operates fine without that. Currently, customers can only get to this site from 1 or 4 ways. I'll start with number 1, is people coming from the Hampton area who are eastbound customers in Southwest simply turn into the site on the Southwest Avenue site. Number 2, northbound customers coming from the abandoned Walgreens at Arsenal have to go to Southwest, get in the left turn only lane, make a left turn, and enter the site from Southwest Avenue. That's what I do every time I go there. And the access number 3 is westbound customers coming on Vandeventer, coming from I-44 in downtown. They can simply drive straight through the intersection onto Southwest Avenue and turn in at the Southwest Avenue entrance. Entry or access number 4, southbound Kings Highway, customers coming from I-44, I-64, and the BJC area coming south can get to Walgreens quicker and safer by turning right onto Southwest Avenue and then turning in at the Southwest Avenue entrance, rather than driving by the Walgreens and the bank and then circuitously maneuvering through the south parking lot, then the west parking lot, and finally the east to get to the northeast corner entrance. It just seems like a strange route to have to take to drive around the entire building to get in when you could just turn on the southwest. Each day Kings Highway has 47,500 vehicles traversing the east side of this site, while Southwest Avenue has 9,900 vehicles on the north side. These numbers are noted in BMO's plans. Volume matters. Using Southwest Avenue provides an easier and safer site access from all 4 directions, thereby benefiting both customers and the neighborhood. Currently, not a single commercial curb cut exists on Kings Highway between Southwest Avenue and 6 blocks to the south at Arsenal. Our new Kings Highway entry feature at this site benefits only BMO's ability to sell the site for a Walgreens and nothing more. The sole store entrance on the northeast corner, where Kings Highway pedestrian traffic is almost non-existent, and customer parking couldn't be farther away from the entry doors. From a functional or practical point of view, the site layout makes no sense. To the next slide, please. Now we're looking at BMO site plan, and one of the negative impacts is that BMO's mandated southbound exit point lies roughly 55 feet north of Botanical Avenue and immediately opposite Tower Grove Place. This was a conscious, calculated location established inside of the property lines, premised on BMO's hypothesis that a non-contributing building had no aesthetic value and posed no problem in being demolished. BMO has shown no regards or regrets as to their exit's external neighborhood effects. Vehicles, both residents and other people traveling northbound on Kings Highway Boulevard, are required to make a left turn to get onto one-way westbound Botanical at the bottom of the sheet. By day or night, they will have little warning when departing customers come darting out of the Walgreens southbound exit point only 55 feet away. Take note that the large radius used at this Walgreens exit point enhances customer acceleration into the traffic flow. This is insane. It's a disaster waiting to happen. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to see this. A tragic accident occurred here 6 weeks ago on October 17th. Residents of many neighboring streets use one-way westbound Tower Grove Place as a means to access southbound Kings Highway. Making this turn, and this is the turn I make every day, is often like a game of dodgeball, especially during rush hour, waiting for traffic gaps to align in both north and south directions along this hectic thoroughfare. BMO's southbound exit point creates a third distraction for these drivers to contend with and will make navigating this turn even worse.
Mr. Reed,
Yes?
do you have any non-traffic testimony to offer?
Yes.
Could we proceed to that, please?
Can I add one line, if you may?
Absolutely.
The above residents will be negative impacted 365 days a year for decades to come by BMO's thoughtless exit design. I see pitfalls that won't go away. It's a detriment, not an improvement to the neighborhood. The next item I have, we can go here. That's fine. Sorry.
1 second, guys. While they're looking for your slide, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Staff has asked us to make if we approve this, to make it conditional on the applicant getting a curb cut approved. Are you telling us not to make that a condition?
I'm not understanding why there are architects and engineers on the board required by the ordinance who are licensed by the state to keep an eye out for public safety, to ensure public safety. To me, this is something as an architect, it's obvious. Sorry. What? I just didn't see why it would need to be, deferred to somebody else if you had people on your board who are capable of seeing this. Was just
The scope of our consideration is defined by ordinance, and you're probably giving much of your presentation that you're going to give to the streets department later.
sometimes you just won't trust everybody. You got to watch out who's making what decisions, and I'm just trying to stop things where I can, sir.
Now, to my question, do you want us, is it your testimony that we should not make getting approval for the curb cut a condition of our approving this?
No, I mean, if you approve it, then you would, I would want somebody else to take a look at it, because it's a dangerous situation that needs to be looked at.
Thank you. Proceed.
Okay.
You want this one, sir, or you want
That's fine.
this one?
No. That one. There's a situation that I've kind of run across, they call it silent site irregularities, but this is the west end of BMO site. It's got an existing employee parking lot that has 28 cars, and the lot abuts a residence on the west, and on the north, it's right on the edge of a current public alley. The alley serves Southwest Garden Neighborhood Association and Three Flags Tavern. That's what exists today. Could you go back one slide? This is the current site plan for the design, and every design that I think has been presented since the summer, since July, and they all show BMO's employee parking area on the west edge of the site within the box as expanding into the alley. Basically, their property line, if you trace the property line, all of a sudden it crosses this alley from the southeast side to the northwest side of the alley. Basically, killing the alley. It leaves a dead end, or two dead ends, one on each side. BMO's on the same sheet, up above at the top in the small script, is BMO's legal tract description. It indicates that the alley's right-of-way, its southeast right-of-way is the property line, which is what I would have thought. But the drawing, the site plan, shows the alley's northwest right-of-way as a property line. So either the description is wrong or the drawing is wrong. Something's not in agreement. But parking on the site, I think, is part of the project's discussion.
Mr. Reed, is there a way for you to summarize your testimony? Otherwise, I will suspend it, let other people speak, and then bring you up afterwards. Your choice.
I will summarize it.
Thank you.
I would ask you to have BMO fully explain the site modifications to the alley and just what's going on. Their site is also pulling in from the west property line at the, creating, I've got it outlined in blue, a zone which looks like a new alley right away. It looks to me like BMO is killing an alley and then creating a right-of-way for a new alley to open out onto Botanical. If that's their intent, I think you folks need to know that if you're making a decision approving this project.
Thank you very much. Mary Ann Owens?
You have one finishing short?
I'll bring you up at the end.
Pardon?
I'll bring you back at the end. Mary Ann Owens?
Hi, thank you for hearing me. My name is Mary Ann Owens, and I live at 5539 Southwest Avenue. And my house is 100 years old. I have grown up there and live there now. It was my grandfather's home. My family has been in this area since the 1800s. My great-grandfather's obit says he took a bullet to the pant leg in a skirmish with Pretty Boy Floyd. My grandfather was a detective at Southwest Bank, right.
Granted.
Right. And I just want to let you know that, I have a very, very vested interest in the neighborhood. This is my home. And I am very excited about what's going to be done to Southwest Bank. I would have, fought tooth and nail against tearing it down. I'm still not thrilled that they'll be getting rid of my safe deposit boxes and the original interior, which is awesome because that's where the movie was made. But since we're involved with the exterior, I think it's wonderful that they want to bring it back to the original. I think it's going to be an improvement for the neighborhood. I love the idea of having that restaurant there and that has the urban design up by the, at the street level and the parking is hidden. And I just wanted to say that I'm in support of it, and I do hope that whatever they do on the opposite side of the street where the current Walgreens is, that it's something, just as gorgeous. So
if you're here afterwards, I'm going to want to hear that Pretty Boy Floyd story.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Brendan Smith.
My name is Brendan Smith. I live at 4557 Tower Grove Place, and I am opposed to these development plans. The staff opinion in July recommended denial, and the board did deny the project in August. BMO and Draper Kramer are back now with more drawings that have the same flaws as their last submission. The proportions of the elevations are still grossly exaggerated, and the submission is again incomplete, lacking scale elevations of Southwest Avenue. And the financial analysis is still not credible, as I noted in the previous board meeting. But the ordinance requires this board to assess projects according to 8 parameters noted in the ordinance as items A through H. And I would like to go through those and note where I feel that they are falling short of those requirements.
As long as you do it quickly.
I will attempt to do it as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Item A, redevelopment plans. There are no existing redevelopment plans that would call for demolition, so no allowance there. B, architectural quality. They're defined as merit buildings, and they shall not be demolished except under unusual circumstances. As my comments will note, I don't think we're seeing unusual circumstances. C is about condition. They're all deemed sound, so again, no reason to presume that demolition is necessary. Under D, neighborhood effect and reuse potential. It's a sub-item 1, neighborhood potential. The staff opinion also notes there's no reason for considering approval of demolition under that item. Sub-item 2, reuse potential. The staff opinion for this item contains some incorrect information. It notes first that a large portion of the buildings have not been used in 20 years. That is untrue. You can walk past them any day and see people, desks, personal items, house plants. But you don't have to take my word for it. You can ask Brad Smith from the bank, who in August right here said that they are currently using it on a temporary basis. Item G, commonly controlled property. This requirement notes that appropriate uses shall include those allowed under current zoning classification. Again, it does not meet that standard. And item H, accessory structures, no concerns there. So of the 17 points we've just gone through, I see this proposal complying with 4. The drawings submitted to you are again below the standard required for submittal, let alone approval, and their content does not meet the requirements of the ordinance. The Kings Highway elevations are not to scale. No elevations have been submitted for the Southwest Avenue side. Of concerns raised at the August meeting when the application was denied, they have addressed virtually none. Between August and October, they made no effort to solicit input from the neighborhood. In October, they showed these revised plans to the Neighborhood Association Board and 4 or 5 of us neighbors. Both groups advised them not to submit to the October board meeting, which they did anyway, and then pulled their submission at the last minute. We further advised them to hold a public meeting with the neighborhood to show them these plans, to solicit input, to actually gather information, and incorporate that into their plans. They again refused to do so. Now, Mr. Burse here spoke about community engagement, and I can't blame him for misunderstanding the nature of all the meetings that he listed up there, because to my knowledge he didn't attend any of them. But these meetings were largely generated by the neighborhood association and by the neighbors trying to get information from BMO Harris and Draper Kramer about this project. We were reluctantly pulled along at every step. Throughout this process, they've misled the neighbors, kept us in the dark, ignored our efforts to work together, back-channeled with the mayor's office, going over the head of our alderman, to try to push this through despite our objections. They're asking us as a neighborhood to accept several significant downgrades, including the change in zoning to a less desirable one, and the demolition of protected buildings. This preservation district belongs to us, the people in the neighborhood. They want to undo what we put in place and are offering nothing of real value in return. It's all downside for us. Now, not to pick on Mr. Burse again, but he and Mr. Brown described many improvements in their discussion. But these were all improvements compared to a previous plan, a previous bad plan. They are not improvements when you compare them to the current existing condition, which is all that really matters when we're assessing the potential demolition of historic buildings. They seem to believe that approval is owed to them despite the rules, and it is not. That is why we have the ordinance, and why we have this board, so that those with the money and influence cannot simply do whatever they want in our neighborhoods. They have met neither the baseline requirements nor the spirit of the ordinance, and I ask you to please reject their proposal accordingly.
Jim Schreifer.
My name is Jim Schreifer. I live at 2726 Dalton. It appears that everybody's for progress as long as it doesn't cost them money or happen across the street from their house. I'm very happy with the proposed plans for this corner. It's needed cleaning. It was a pretty building when I was a little boy, and it's still a pretty building. It's just showing its age and its neglect. and I support this project the way it's proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Beeson?
My name is Amy Beeson, and I live at 4663 Tower Grove Place. I am thankful that you have allowed us to come here again. I'll try to be brief. Right? If you stand, some of this, like the plan before you, isn't entirely changed from what it was when we were last together. But if you stand at the intersection of Kings Highway, Vandeventer, Southwest, and Shenandoah, you can see a clear difference in the built environment if you look to the north and you look to the south. If you approve the demolitions of these buildings for a Walgreens and parking lots, you'll change not only this view, but also the integrity of this historic built environment. The new view of parking lots, commercial Walgreens, and a facade of what was comes at a cost to the residents and to the city. The value of a property in a community isn't only to an individual owner, it's to the community. And in this case, moving a pharmacy from one side of the street to another does not add value to our neighborhood. By leaving only a facade, economic potential, it could be argued, is in fact limited. People are drawn to our city for its parks, its culture, and the historic architecture you're charged with protecting. Will these facades be protected as historic buildings? People have repeatedly identified their interest in this historic district. In January of 2012, when it was formally recognized as such, in April of 2016, when over 12,000 people signed a petition to save these buildings, in July, when neighbors identified concerns, building preservation being at the top of the list, in August, when neighbors again identified that they were not opposed to development, but were opposed to the current proposal and were opposed to demolition, and most recently in October and November, when 138 residents weighed in, 109 of them saying that they oppose demolition of the Merit buildings for this development. 86 of them oppose demolition of any historic building, even if the facade is preserved. Residents who continue to say that safety is important to them, 131 of them oppose the curb cut. We continue to be interested in and will support development that is more consistent with the integrity of our built environment, with 95 of us favoring development that is better than this current proposal. I think this is a case where the long wait will demonstrate the value of retaining our current built environment. We are also individuals, 5 of us support the current proposal. The mechanism that we have in place to protect our neighborhoods and our history seems to be broken. It seems the message here today to developers is to start with a plan so bad, I think earlier it was referred to as garbage, that any changes to that plan are seen as great improvement and significant. We're here listening to a proposal to demolish historic buildings before the applicant has applied for or received additional permits, approvals, and variances from city offices, a timeline which I think is in conflict with the CRO preliminary review policy and procedures. I urge you, who are charged with preserving our built environment, to say no to the demolition of these buildings in order to make space for driveways, Walgreens, and parking lots. Allowing these buildings to come down will diminish the character and integrity of the entrance to this neighborhood. Our neighborhood and the city deserve better than turning our unique spaces into ordinary ones. The new construction being proposed does not equal or exceed the potential contribution of the structure to the integrity of the existing streetscape or block face. It doesn't even come close. What is the Preservation Board's job if not to preserve the actual historic character and integrity of the neighborhoods and of this city? I ask respectfully that you please reject this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Imran Hanafi.
Hi. Could I have the...
You want to do it for yourself?
No, I'm okay either way. I'll stay here. I'd like to look for the people. My name is Imran Hanafi, and I used to live at 4448 Shaw Boulevard, and I still own the building, so hence I put that address up there.
If we wanted to find you now, where would we look for you?
Right now, I'm in 4464 Maryland Avenue. November 28th is the name of the file. There you go. PDF. I put that up there because my name's hard to pronounce. It's exciting to be part of this process. This is good. This is community engagement. I'm glad there's so many people here speaking up. And it's also okay to be excited about the reuse potential of historic buildings, because it'd be a first when the Walgreens utilizes the historic facade. But you can't let that distract you from the real meat of the issue. So yesterday, day before yesterday, I just drove down Kings Highway, and I went to Kings Highway near Chippewa. And on one side of the street, because this is the west side, you have this intact block of buildings, no spaces between them, nicely clustered together. And they have some really good characteristics to them, which I want to highlight. We'll go to the next slide. So first of all, they're all historic handcrafted buildings that you set your eyes on them and you know that you cannot construct them these days, not without a pretty penny. There's diversity of ownership because all of these are, it seems, owned by separate owners. And there's protection to the block in that case when there are multiple owners that live together and form a community. Because these are paid for and there's not big loans with them, there are cheaper rents that can support small businesses and startups. And many of them are mixed use with apartment buildings on the top and people coming and going all times of the day and night. Those are the eyes on the sidewalk that you need for safety in the community. Curb cuts don't give you that. And there's an enduring sense of place. I just look at that. Can anyone in this room deny that this is a special place? That not many like this exist?
Well, I could do without the payday loan company.
Well, so businesses come in all levels of income, and there has to be diversity in our communities. Not everything can be luxury or should be luxury. Just like you diversify your investments in the stock market, you have to do the same in a community. Then I I just did a blow-up of that, and I looked across the street. All right, so this is the wisdom of our forefathers that decided, I imagine something similar used to exist there. I couldn't find historic photographs. But somebody decided, famous bar. But I don't know what was before the famous bar, because that was a mid-century thing.
The Garden of Eden.
Really?
Peter McLeod had like an outpost there.
All right.
Then it was famous bar.
All right, well, I stand informed. But somebody decided, okay, we got to have a high-end retail.
Hey, can you draw your testimony back to the matter in front of us?
Yes, I will.
Like, quickly.
All right.
Before I lose my commissioner here.
All right, that's fine. So these are high-end retail, Starbucks and Walgreens. On the other side, go to the next slide. They're single-use, disposable buildings that are not meant to last for a long time. There's activity turned away from the sidewalks. They leave retail and economic activity voids in the middle. And there's not enough visual interest to slow traffic or attract pedestrians. And this picture I put in because it was on the corner, and there's houses going down the street. I want to point out, there's not just architectural merit that brings value to community. Nondescript, one-story buildings can be a great buffer for the residential and retail areas. So these are the two directions we're taking, we can take in this direction, in this issue. On the one hand, we have something that's similar to what exists. There are no gaps in the street. There's economic activity potential. On the other, you just do what the retailers want, and you think the economic activity will follow. So there are three things that I think are failing in this plan, despite all the glossy images and the excitement. It empowers cars over pedestrians. There's access points and points of conflict for pedestrians. You can imagine people with strollers or wheelchairs going down that curb cut if they're going to access the bank from the sidewalk. That's downright disrespectful. Then another one moves away from a future of mixed-use potential and economic impact like that. Even if it's a payday loan, I would take that over a blank parking lot because it's generating more activity. And the third thing is it does not add a unique or new value or amenity to this neighborhood We already have Walgreens, we already have parking lots, we have curb cuts. What is it compelling about this plan that we have to make all these compromises? You know, it's like, oh, first we were gonna just murder the block, and now we're just gonna maim it, so yay, you know, it's wonderful. So I'm certainly not in support of it. I think the tide is turning, you have to wait, better things are coming, do not sell yourself out short. Thank you.
Amy Long?
Amy Long, 4648 Tower Grove Place. Thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Amy Long, and I'm a lifelong resident of the city of St. Louis. I've been a homeowner on Tower Grove Place for 15 years, and I've lived on the block for a total of 36. When I say
The address of your sign-up sheet is 46.
4648.
Okay, thank you.
When I say I understand my neighborhood and that I am invested in its prosperity, I know whereof I speak. I am not and never will be opposed to economic development that is sound and balanced for the needs of the neighborhood and the business owners. So I am not in my backyard type of person. Our city needs economic development to continue to thrive, to prosper. But that economic development must be cognizant of the fabric into which it's trying to insert itself. When I was young, I watched my parents and neighbors fight to keep the subway a quick trip from taking over the corner at Shenandoah and Kings Highway, the corner opposite the bank. And back then, I didn't understand or appreciate why they spent so much time fighting that. Sorry. But now, as a second-generation Tower Grove Place resident, not only do I understand, but I truly appreciate why they did what they did. They were not protecting the fabric of our neighborhood from a development that would not help but harm the neighborhood. They patiently endured the sight of an empty lot for almost 10 years, and that patience paid off. Now we have a beautiful rain garden, 3 business neighbors, in Operation Brightside, the Lupus Foundation, and ProMotion Physical Therapy. The corner enhances the fabric of our neighborhood, along with the businesses that occupy the commercial space. They add value and increase the quality of life in our neighborhood. My parents and neighbors held out for better, demanded better, and eventually that's what they got. So now, as a second-generation Tower Grove Place resident, I feel it's my responsibility to fight for something better on the corner of Kings Highway and Southwest for my kids, hopefully the third-generation Tower Grove Place residents, and future residents of Tower Grove Place and Southwest Garden neighborhood. What BMO Harris and Draper Kramer are proposing, while slightly different from the plan you voted down in August, still do not, in my estimation, add value or increase the quality of life in the Southwest Garden neighborhood. The plan barely adheres to the ordinances, as my neighbor pointed out, put in place to protect our neighborhoods and the cultural heritage from the encroachment of unnecessary commercialization in historically significant neighborhoods. This project will not stabilize and improve the value of my property and the equity held by me or my neighbors in our property. As a matter of fact, I don't need a Walgreens to stabilize or improve the value of my property because according to the St. Louis Business Journal, published August 19th, this project is located in a residential real estate market that has been characterized as hot. I have copies of the map if you'd like it. And I can attest to the fact that my neighborhood is not a hot real estate market because there's a Walgreens at the end of my block. It's hot because there's not a Walgreens at the end of my block. What is located at the end of my block is a historically significant solid block face that provides a lovely, quieting boundary to a beautiful and quiet residential neighborhood. What will happen most likely if this project is allowed to proceed in its current format is that the value of my property will decline because of the way this particular project disregards the continuity and the architectural significance of all 5 buildings as a whole, thus disregarding the context into which the development must fit. As a resident, I want to see economic development take place, but the right economic development balances needs of neighborhoods and the wants of businesses to make money. I don't think we're asking too much for this to be taken into consideration and for the developer to consider the long view and impact of this project, not the short view and immediate profits. When this developer tells us that a mixed commercial residential development won't work at this site, yet at the same time 3 blocks away on the Fling property, they're telling the Hill neighborhood that that is the only thing that will work, and they keep telling us that Walgreens is the only option, but no RFPs have been made. This leads me to believe that the bank and the developer have no real interest in what's best for my neighborhood, period. They state they have worked on this project for 3 years, yet in those 3 years, only recently were we involved. BMO is Raybrook Kramer, maximizing your profits, your business, but protecting my home and my neighborhood is mine. I hope that eventually a reasonable outcome can occur, but be aware we are patient people. We will not give up till we're offered something better, and we will continue to fight to protect our property. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Shell? Hello, Mr. Shell. Thank you for your patience.
Good evening. Thank you for your patience. I was here at the previous meeting,
So was I.
and not much has changed.
What is your address, sir?
4943 Reaver Place.
Thank you.
You're welcome. One thing that was brought up at the previous meeting by the developers was a lease. Has any member of the board seen this lease? Have any of you asked to see this lease?
No questions of us, just do the presentation, please.
Okay. Those of you who might recall, they claim to have a 70-year lease from Walgreens. I believe that that is deliberately misleading.
I believe it is also irrelevant to this discussion.
Okay, they're lying to you. You don't care, that's fine. This picture, if you want to bring it up or not, this is the elevation from Southwest. I'll hand out to you the what this looks like. You can pass it around. Pass it down to there. There you go.
Donna, thank you.
When you look at that picture, you'll see a large blue-green rectangle that doesn't appear to be part of anything. It's just sort of stuck there. The Walgreens website tells you what it is. It's an LED reader board, a pylon sign, which they don't want you to see. They don't want you to know that they want a LED sign facing in both directions, one on east on Kings Highway and another one facing on the southwest. But there it is off the Walgreens website. I won't belabor the fact that no other RFPs have been let, but it should be obvious to anyone that that stretch can support several street businesses and not just a Walgreens. They claim that the economic possibilities are limited. Not limited for the Walgreens. In fact, Walgreens has a gauntlet of corporate hurdles, demographic requirements, traffic counts, cost sales, profitability modeling, competitive landscape analysis, retail trade area concentration. They make it a science to make money. I don't blame them for that. They're very good at it. But the reason that they want this property is that they want to colonize our neighborhood. This is not about bringing something new or something that's needed. It's strictly about the money. I'll pass out a few more things having to do with why it's such a good investment. Walgreens is a good investment for these folks because it's guaranteed money. They don't have to think. They don't have to do anything. Zero responsibilities, zero cost exposure, guaranteed cash flow for 20 plus years, leverage, depreciation, tax savings, and they don't have to deal with any messy little local businesses who hold a small part of the building in a lease. It's all one big, smooth package. Great for them, bad for us. Ladies and gentlemen, putting up a phony facade to hide a parking lot is what you do if you own an amusement park or a theme park. I don't live in Silver Dollar City. And if this goes through, the only silver dollars are going to be flowing to Chicago and to Canada. And as for any benefit to the neighborhood or to the city in general, I invite you to go down to the Collector of Revenue, to the Assessor's Office, where Walgreens has been every year for the past 10th, trying to lower their tax assessments. In fact, if you go online, search for Walgreens, and then the phrase, declare war, you will find that they've declared war on their taxes. They've gone to court into several states. They're looking for hundreds of millions of dollars that is not going to flow to the city of St. Louis. This is a bad joke. They told us before that they were going to come back with another plan and that you're not going to like it. Well, they managed to take a joke and turn it into a tragedy. This is absurd. A phony facade to hide a parking lot, to replace a historic building. What kind of a bad joke is that? Nothing I can do about it. It's in your hands. It's your responsibility. If you really think that this city's going to benefit from having 2 more zombie Walgreens, one on Kings Highway and the other one on Southwest, give it to us, but that's what you're going to be giving us. Arsenal and Kings Highway will become a zombie Walgreens. They've already decided that. They're upfront about that. What's going to happen to that building? We'll have another scar right across from the park. Won't that be lovely? Thank you very much for your time and attention. Good evening.
Judy Miniachi, please.
I live at 4543 Tower Grove Place. I'm opposed, I'll be very brief. I'm opposed for all the reasons. Brendan did a fabulous job of summarizing the issues that I have. The other issue I have is by undertaking this development, you will present to the neighborhood 2 new empty buildings and an extremely ugly drive as you, or an extremely ugly photograph, so to speak, as you look at Southwest Avenue going west. You have a filling station, which I know you have nothing to do with that. The side of the current Walgreens, and as you go up the street, there's yet another empty building that has been there for years. So you would be adding to our empty building issue. Thank you.
Nick Cohen.
Can you go to the next person again to make an emergency stop?
Tom Stoff.
Even better. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, Mr. Cohen's back. Where to go?
I've got you now.
Oh, see how you are. Well, anyway, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee for giving us an opportunity to
Mr.
join
Cohen,
you
for
once
some
again.
reason, Mr. Stoff said you didn't want to talk.
I'm sure that's not true. But rather than being redundant, there have been a lot of excellent points raised, and there have been a lot of emotional concerns expressed to this board. And we were very fortunate last time when we met with you to discuss these issues. Once again, you've been very polite to us and given us a great deal of your time. I would like to point out a couple of things. One is that the people you've heard from today spent a whole lot of time and a whole lot of energy researching the presentations they made to you. And that was the first time. They redoubled their efforts this time because they wanted to have even greater data to present to you to support our position in opposing this project. Each of them has indicated to you, as I will, that we're not opposed to sensible
redevelopment in our neighborhood. There's no question about that. We're very proud of our neighborhood. I neglected to mention, I live at 4517 Tower Grove Place, where I resided for 41 years. And I was one of those people with Ms. Long's parents who worked long and hard to stop bad redevelopment on the corner of Kings Highway and Shenandoah. And of course, it took a while, but as you will see if you ever drive by there, we came up with a very good compromise project, and it not only is good for that corner, but enhanced the neighborhood immediately around it. I'm here in support of these folks, and I'm here in support of our neighborhood, and I would suggest to you that when I served in the Missouri legislature, I had a fairly significant constituency. And I will tell you that when my constituency wrote letters to me, called me on the phone, came to my office, I listened to their concerns and weighed them very heavily when I came to making decisions about legislative votes I would take. And I think this is kind of the same type of situation. There's certainly pro and con on either side. You've got for, you've got against. But I think that the folks who have been most vocal in opposition to this project are those who live closest and are going to be most directly affected if this project is implemented. So with that, I would ask you to please consider rejecting this proposal as it stands, and thank you once again for allowing us to come down and visit with you.
Sean Spencer?
Good evening, Commissioners, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm Sean Spencer. I'm here as a private resident of the Shaw neighborhood. I'm also a small business owner and a property owner and a developer. I'm here to support the project. Just to start, I want to thank the Commissioners and Tower Grove Place residents and the Neighborhood Association for pushing back so strongly the last time that we were here. What happened was we created a much more and a much better project that's going to last us a lifetime. As a developer, I understand what it takes to make these projects work, and we've seen what was able to happen when people come together and make good decisions. This is not a demo project proposal, this is a preservation proposal. As stated before, I echo Dan and Mr. Krasnoff's thoughts that this is the first time in St. Louis history that we're going to be able to incorporate a new design of a new building into a historic facade, and that can't be taken lightly. So, excuse me. Just a couple other points. Things have been talked about tonight about phony facades, elevation concerns, demoing the facades. These facades will be stabilized and used in their current position. I was just in Louisville and I saw this used masterfully in the downtown area, and I look forward to seeing that happen in the future. Investment breeds more investment, and to Jerry's point, there's at least 4 surface lots, including the old Walgreens, which will become a development opportunity along Southwest that could be developed as residential or mixed use. We have plenty of opportunities up and down the stretch to take advantage of that opportunity. I think this development could be a catalyst for those additional investments, and I do support this project. Thank you.
Jason Kemp?
Thank you. My name is Jason Kemp. I'm here as a resident of Shaw that lives near the property at 4058 Shenandoah. I'm also here not in an official capacity, but I am a board member of the Tower Grove Neighborhoods Community Development Corporation. I chair the Area-Wide Improvements Committee, and I'm also its vice president. I want to talk briefly about the benefits of this project to the CDC, just so that you all are aware. No? You don't care?
I would actually like you to talk about whether or not you believe the proposal conforms with the historic district ordinances.
I do. The facades are preserved, and we believe that this will add significantly to the value. Speaking as a resident, let me tell you how many times I've visited this property in the past 7 years. With a new development there, with a Walgreens, with a potential restaurant space there, a revitalized VMO, as well as the CDC having the opportunity to have a building there and run its small business. I will frequent that property often, and I will contribute my tax dollars to the Southwest Garden neighborhood and walk down to Three Flags Tavern and the other businesses in the area. So as a resident, I do see a great benefit to having it there. I will tell you that I do want to say that the gifting of this to the CDC opens up about $100,000+ of funds that would be available to the CDC, which we could then turn around and turn into $1 million+ of development in these Shaw, Southwest Gardens, and Tower Grove neighborhoods areas. That is our service area, and so there is a potential for significant development from the CDC because of the freeing up of the funds that would be associated with the gifting of this property. So all of those factors considered, both as a resident and as someone who is intimately involved in development in the area, I do want to say that this proposal, I think, conforms with the requirements and greatly adds value to the property and the neighborhood as a whole. Thank you.
Jamie Drake?
Sorry, I have a question for him. Yes.
Sorry, so the last time I thought, are there improvements that will be made to the 2335 building prior to being donated to the?
So I'd have to turn to the developers. I don't know offhand what the specific, we will be negotiating a contract with them, obviously, to take over ownership of that property. I can tell you that the board, though not speaking on behalf of the board, is very, we're not going to take over a piece of property that has not been improved. We want to make sure that it meets the ability for us to, we want it to be move-in ready, essentially, and we also one of our requirements will be that it fits the facade as it exists there. In other words, if they're going to take the white off of all the other buildings, they're going to take it off the building at 2335 as well, so that it all fits in that. Thank you.
Jamie Drake?
It's Janice.
Janice?
Sorry.
See you there.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Hi, my name is
By the way,
Janice.
if the audience detects that I am moving you along quickly, we are in our third hour, and the chairman of the Public Safety Commission has another meeting, the committee, the Board of Aldermen has another meeting, and if we want him in on this vote, we need to move along.
Thank you. My son and I moved into the Southwest Garden neighborhood in 1987, where my family had been living for a few years. It's just a few blocks from the site that we're discussing today. I started using the local drugstore and the local bank immediately. They were close and served the community for many years. In 1991, I purchased a building and got my loan from Southwest Bank. While rehabbing my beautiful old home built in the 1920s, I became actively involved in neighborhood housing and politics. Throughout the years, I watched the changes when the privately owned Southwest Bank finally sold out to the large national bank, and everyone worried about the new bank's commitment to the neighborhood and would it close. I stuck it out with the new bank. I still have a checking account there. But I did notice that there were fewer people working there, as services no longer included like a large loan department. I also noticed that my Walgreens needed a vast facelift. My son now owns his own building in the neighborhood and is committed to taking the family housing and rental legacy into the future. This finally leads me to this bank site proposal. The original proposal called for the demolition of all buildings on site, including the iconic corner building. This final one calls for demo of the 1970 building that has no historic significance. The two other facades will be preserved, which appears to be a first for Walgreens in St. Louis, as several people have mentioned. The historic corner building will also be completely renovated. Please realize that people in favor of this plan are not going to take the time off work to voice support. They're just not. They say when you ask, it looks great. They finally got it right. This is a marquee redevelopment of an historical building while preserving our physical assets. You know, just because you're loud
doesn't mean you're right. You see it every day. Your job is to make a good decision that positively impacts our communities. There's absolutely no reason to reject this final proposal. You will be proud when you approve it. And with your permission, I would like to end with giving you, I was going to give you 2 original documents, but I believe you already have one of them. So I'm going to simply talk about the survey. The survey that I personally took this weekend, I'm just going to hand it to you. I'm not going to
Hand it to Adonna.
That's fine, I just want to tell you what it is, and then
It's the survey.
I'll have to explain it. I decided that the businesses within the 2 blocks around the site should be asked how they feel. I showed them the new renderings and answered all their questions. They were excited to see the new development and thank me for stopping by. Some wanted to have all their employees sign, but I have opted to leave only 1 signature for business. These are all within on Southwest Avenue and Van Venner. This vital commercial community that wants this long neglected building site to be revitalized and help the whole neighborhood prosper. They also want the Kings Highway Bridge to be reopened, but that's a story for another day.
Possibly another meeting.
Yes, I agree. So I finished my surveying at 2 o'clock today, and that's why I did not send it in advance. You will have the only copy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your speech. Mr. or Ms. Scribbler Bean. Whose street address is something like 1200, something that starts with a W. Who's possibly a doctor or a pharmacist. Okay. If you decide who you are, let me know. Mr. Cohen?
Anybody want to get up and stretch while I'm talking, feel free.
Actually, if you could be as brief as possible.
I will be as brief as possible.
I do not want to lose the alderman.
So, Alderman, thanks for sticking it out. First, I think it's wonderful that a survey was taken of the residents. Thanks, Janice.
Who's the business?
I've had the businesses. I wish they'd taken a survey of the residents, but they didn't. So anyway, you have a packet in front of you, and I want to talk to the ordinance more than anything else. And
that would be most appreciated.
yes, all right, here we go.
I love the rippling of pages.
64832. Often unnecessary demolitions erode the area of building stock and contribute to the degradation of property values of adjacent properties. If you'll look in your folder, you have a letter there from an appraiser, and you have a letter from Andy Dealman, the president of Sotheby's Dealman Real Estate. The appraiser's been in business for 35 years. Succinctly, they both just simply state that your property will lose value. Now, that bungalow that Dan alluded to that Amy Beeson lives in is a 4-bedroom home that's worth about $300,000 to $350,000. And she's directly across the street from the entrance and that big Walgreens sign. If you read their letters, they just say when you go full-blown commercial in a residential neighborhood, and not only is it a residential neighborhood, but it's Reber Place, a historic district. It is also Shaw Garden Historic District, is on the other side of Kings Highway. It is also very close distance to one of only 4 parks. They're on the National Historic Registry. And of course, the Botanical Garden. So this is what the best we can come up with in this area. I don't think so. Adaptive reuse of residential and commercial buildings in St. Louis has often been proved to be economically feasible and profitable alternative to demolition. I don't disagree with the statement. But we don't know, because we've only looked at one thing since 2013. If you look at the big map I gave you, I think, there we go. This is the big map. You can see, You can see a date here, where is it? Right here, 2013. So the plan's been in the works for a long time, folks. And the fact that they have moved from where they began to where they are now, I'll just simply say, you're welcome. I mean, if not for the citizen input here, okay, this wouldn't be where it is today. Now that small map you see up there, I do that for a reason. You got a big one in your packet and you got a small one. The small one is the one we get at the meetings. You can't read the print with a magnifying glass. The big one is the one that Dan gets, where you can read it. But magnifying glass we did get out. So let's move on. Proposed new construction is not compatible with existing older buildings, and such elevation is a legitimate, and such evaluation is a legitimate function of the CRO. We agree, it is. But we think the CRO and its staff has really missed a lot of salient points. One, it must provide current and proposed site plans showing all existing and proposed construction to scale. Has not happened. Landscape plans, they did do that. Elevation, they must show all elevations facing streets or parts of all proposed or renovated structures or existing structures to remain to scale. In other words, anywhere there's a house looking on this project, and if you'll allow me, we still, and we have asked for it directly in meetings, we have an elevation looking to the north from Botanical, which is a residential street, okay? We still don't have it. You don't have it, Dan doesn't have it, nobody has it. We also asked for the possible traffic flow on Botanical, because they have this one here, and they show it on the map submitted to you, and they have this one here. We know the traffic flows there. However, I found out a new word, and trust me guys, I am the neophyte here, but it's called trip generation. And with algorithms, and they know their input into the store, they know the traffic flow, they can project within plus or minus 5% of how many cars are not going to go up Botanical. And up Botanical they will go, because that's the beauty of the curve cut. Everybody that comes out of the hill, everybody that comes from western, southwest Garden needs to get back home. That curve cut exists for one reason and one reason only: get people out and back home. These are neighborhood stores. We're demolishing buildings to build a neighborhood store, but it's going to create some really bad situations. Moving forward, staying within the scope, Ordinance 64059 definitions. They have the definition of contributing, they have the definition of sound, and we still haven't quite figured it out, and that's simply that the buildings are portrayed in the write-up as fair condition. But when they're judged in a sound condition. I'm glad they're judged in sound condition, because the ordinance leans to that and just simply says, merit buildings of sound condition may not be demolished unless there's extraordinary circumstances. And there have been no extraordinary circumstances shown here. And by the way, we know there's been no work done on the building. And like my colleague here, Brendan, pointed out, I did the follow-up and called building department. Just because these are historical buildings, and what they need to do is get a permit to do anything, to paint, to tuck point, to do anything. And the man I talked to in the building division said there's been no permits pulled. So for 3-4 years that they've owned the building, they've done no outside maintenance to it. And I don't want to reward them for that. All right, so anyway, Section 5E2 of Ordinance 64059. Okay. The integrity of the existing block face and whether the proposed demolition will significantly impact the continuity and rhythm of the structures within the block. So I asked there that you'll look to a letter received from Michelle Dietrich at the Department of Natural Resources. And I outlined for you, I only hope you have time to read the whole letter, but I outlined for you the bottom. Each case will be different, but I did want to highlight that non-contributing should never be interpreted outright as throwaway. What this simply means is, and her example given to you in the letter, It simply states that non-contributing does not mean non-important. She says specifically in this case, what it means is that the building was built after 1958. And the U.S. statute provides that no buildings built after 1958 can be considered a contributing building. I'm a little bit chagrined that it's me telling you that, because I knew nothing about any of this stuff going into this. But what my overriding is that building you see on the screen right now, eventually it's going to have a big W and a big Walgreens sign on it, and that's what we'll be looking at coming up our street. And the fact that they're going to keep the facade, you know, percentages, I love math. You did the wrong math for the wrong guy. So 300%, I agree. 290% is it that you're going to end up with more facade? And, yeah. Well, the one here is being torn down and rebuilt. It says it right on their map. And then the one that's covering up the parking lot, they're going to keep that propped up and then reinforce it or whatever. But what you're doing is you're tearing down 90% of historic buildings that exist currently. Put the facade up, you want to count it as a full, it's 20, but 90% of the buildings are going down. And I don't know how you can recover from that. Andrew Wild, last go-round, stood here in front of you and said, once you start tearing at the threads, the edges of a historic district, you start losing what you had there. And certainly, we're not just pulling a thread. We're destroying these historic buildings, 90% of them. And frankly, I forget who it was at the last meeting said, we simply could do better than this. You know, we've heard, once again, I'll repeat, no RFPs were requested, never a for sale sign, never available sign, nothing. The only thing that they had is, we can do this Walgreens, it's a big bang for our buck, let's go ahead and do it. And the people that weren't really considered in all this were the citizens. Now the survey results that you have in front of you there. Southwest Garden asked us to gather data. We did. And the only thing that the people were showing when we asked them to look at the survey and check off the boxes was simply the drawings that were provided by the bank. We didn't do any of this stuff. They didn't see any of that stuff. None of that. So consequently, they looked at what the bank had to offer, they looked at the survey, and boom, they went ahead and said, less than 4% are in favor of the demolition of these buildings for a Walgreens. So, and you see the survey in front of you there, you can do the rest. The last thing I want to show you is you have in there a letter from Garcia Properties, who you've heard mentioned before. And you also have a story about another building, a huge building, going up in the Grove area. This building's being done by a first-time developer, a first-time company. It is a huge project, and it is multi-use with neighborhood commercial on the bottom, and living on top. I don't want to regurgitate about where everybody lives close by. They just simply do, and we're a bargain compared to the Central West End. Garcia took their building. It used to be a car building, and what they did with it is they got their tax credits. They built the bottom floor out, put all their businesses in there, and put up on top 15 market rate apartments and a penthouse apartment, sold out in less than 60 days. And you can see by his letter, he thinks it's a very positive thing that we're doing. The last thing is Mr. Weil is not here today. You got a letter there from him, and I won't read it for you today. You're welcome, okay? But as you're aware, Mr. Weil, one of the 3 preservationists that met with the bank, is definitely against this project. And he is the executive director of Landmarks, and I think he knows something. And I did highlight, if you'd like to read, the one last line where he mentions us. The last part of this is simply a letter from Elkin Kistner, who codified the ordinances for me. And he did it pro bono. Elkin is a former city attorney, and his specialty is real estate and zoning matter, and considered one of the top attorneys in the area. And he said, I quote, "The ordinances in question are codified conveniently and comprehensively." In other words, they were cherry picked. That's okay. I get that. Everybody's got marching orders, and I don't mind that. Then he goes on to say, "Sure seems there are no unusual circumstances that would warrant a demo of a merit or qualifying structure. Also, the condition of the structures is sound, so generally this should not be approved. Under the economic hardship factor, the applicant has a high hurdle to clear. And even if he did, it is not considered, I mean, companies that sued, you know about the buildings downtown where they sued. They sued this preservation board. They sued the city of St. Louis. And they lost because economic factors don't count. They willingly bought out the bank, bought the property, bought the historic entity that was there. If their real estate department fell down on the job, it's not our fault. So having said all that, I personally, in case I didn't make it clear, the zoning here has to be changed. Yes, neighborhood commercial?
Not us.
Yes, it is you, isn't it?
No, it is not.
You have to tear it down because I'm going to the ordinance. I'm sorry. I can tie that in through the ordinance if you'd like.
Oh, can you do it?
For demolition's sake, okay, the ordinance says that if you cannot, you must stay within the same.
So your testimony is that you support the element of the staff recommendation that makes approval conditional on getting appropriate zoning?
Yes, but I want to clarify one point about that, okay? One point I'll clarify about that. It was simply said that this is allowed under the current zoning. Left out the convenient part that anything over 4,000 square feet must be rezoned. I just wanted to clarify that. So no, it just doesn't automatically get to exist because it's already zoned neighborhood commercial. And it's also zoned two-family, which you know is going to be the overriding zoning here. So having said that, I will wrap it up by simply saying, well, where's my thing? Amy, I need my thing. Gosh knows I need my thing. I lost my thing. Keeling, not a word on you. So that's right.
Go to the PowerPoint I have given you and go to the last slide.
Where's that, Amy? Sorry.
It's the
Sorry.
BMO project
I already
picture.
forgot I had it, so I looked up.
Sorry, Amy.
The BMO project picture, yes. And you can go all the way down to the last slide. Keep going.
Keep going. All right.
This one right
All right, right here. This is the factory loss of Tower Road Place. That's what's done. We'd like one more. That one, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to show you, that is a park on the historic registry. We are in the historic Shaw district, and the building is in the Rager Place district. One more, I hope. This is the, go back, that's the Garcia building. That's just, they turned that into a beautiful building and made it multi-use with businesses on the bottom and market rate apartments on top. So when we're told, and we were told, at every step of the way, this is the only project that we can put in here. And then it was, this is the only project that we can put in here. And then it was, it's the only project we can put in here. So, sorry to take up so much of your time. Richard, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it. I hope I was clear and concise. In case you were wondering, I'm not in favor of the project. Did I forget anything? No? Okay, good. Thank you. You were great.
Mr. Reed. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the testimony in this matter. Is that? You did. Who was next?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just add one thing if I may. And it'll be like less than 30 seconds.
It won't have to be faster than the missing commissioner is in the bathroom.
Faster than his trip to the bathroom.
Yes.
Well, I will just say, I know there were a lot of points that were brought up tonight, and one thing I do want to mention is, in case you have any questions about traffic safety, we did bring our traffic engineer tonight to answer any questions you may have.
Oh, you're so mean.
Another meeting.
Another meeting. Exactly right. Oh, you have a motion.
I would move that the Preservation Board conditionally approve the rehabilitation of 2301, 2335 South Plains Highway, the demolition of 2307, 2319, 2327 South Plains Highway, the construction of new commercial building in 2319 South Plains Highway.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Alderman?
This really just supports the staff recommendation after their review and the earlier discussions. And I think that their recommendation has been.
Commissioner Richardson, comment?
I was hoping we could add some of the conditions that the staff was actually recommending that we add to it. One of which would be that they work with staff on design details as well as signage for the project. A second would be that they cannot receive a demolition permit until they have applied for and received a building permit for the new construction of the Walgreens as well as the rehab of 2301, the bank building. And that they also complete the conveyance donation of the 2335 Kings Highway property to the CDC. And that, I think we last talked about that there would be no drive-through on the new construction building that would be on Southwest Highway, or Southwest Boulevard.
Does that sound pretty good?
That's fine.
Satisfactory to the second?
Yes.
Okay. Melanie?
Fine.
Tony?
So I think this is come a long way design-wise, and I've listened to quite a few comments pro and against, and I recall making a motion at a previous meeting that we should in fact deny this project. I believe that as it stands, not that this is the only development that is feasible at this point, because I don't believe that it is the only development. I believe that as it's presented, it's a pretty good development. And I should also mention that having gone through these drawings and taking a look at this building again, there's been testimony to drawings being out of scale, and I don't really see that, and I do them every day. I don't see that exists. I think this is a good development for what it is.
Is the fact that all the Robinsons are square affect that? Commissioner Brisbane, do you have a comment? Okay. I just hate haircuts. Get on a different commission. Mr. Killeen, do you have a comment? Anything you'd like to add for the record?
So just to be clear, Alderman Kennedy has called for to approve the director's recommendation.
Yes, and the motion includes all the conditions in the presentation as well as no drive-through in Southwest.
Okay. Well, I would say that presentation, the design has come a long way, and I think it's improved quite a bit. However, I feel that if you go point by point through our ordinance, there are enough points that are not met that I don't feel I could support the design as currently presented.
Great. Okay, commissioners, there's a motion on the floor. It has been made and seconded. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
The ayes have it. Motion carries. Commissioners, we're going to take a very short break. laugh at everybody who has waited for this meeting.
Comes around, goes around.
We're in. I think we'll just skip agenda item B. No, we will not skip agenda item B. Agenda item B. 1708 to 26 Park Avenue.
I'll be real fast.
Take the time it deserves.
Okay. This is a preliminary review application. Sounds funny. Preliminary review application to construct a 3-story apartment building on this property at 1708 to 26 Park Avenue. And this is the site. It is currently a parking lot across from For Muddy Paws and other things. And the proposal is to place a building. How's this working?
And you have to.
Well, on the left, places the building to be constructed on the western portion of the property with parking associated with the building, which will be screened by a wrought iron fence with brick piers. Up there, thank you. Thank you, Director. Okay. This is a rather bad panoramic view, but that is the lot. So you can see it's extensive. It's a full block width. This is the east corner of the lot at Dolman. And this is the west corner at 18th Street. And what you're seeing over there is Wireworks. Okay, so this is another shot of the context at Park and Dolman. Can I just do this? I'm going backwards? Okay. So this is opposite, directly opposite the site. Just to give you an idea of the scale. And this is east of the site on the opposite side, which is the mop factory of ill repute. And this is opposite west of the site, which has the Lawrence Group very large infill that was done a few years ago, and some historic property. And now we are looking down Dolman. This would be south of the site, and this is Wireworks. Remember, because it's the historic model example. And this is going down towards Park to the north. And this is the current building site. You see there's an existing curb cut which will remain and give access to the new parking area. Now we're at Dolman. This is seems to be kind of scattered, but this is a new building that was done a few years ago, which is an office building. And this is the context on Dolman. And then finally, the context on 18th Street, which is more residential in character. But this is generally the concept that you need to review the building with, considering, because this is directly opposite. In fact, this is the existing lot, and we're looking across Park Avenue. Okay. And as I said, this is the model example. There are certain details taken from this building. I will say that the current design does not adhere strictly to a historic model example as the ordinance asks. And this is the elevation that will be along Park. You will note that these bays here are in fact recessed balconies. But this area has been recently added after some discussions with the Lafayette Square Development Committee to replicate an entry door that it does exist on Wireworks. So while it reflects the vocabulary of Wireworks, it is certainly not a duplicate. This is the south elevation, which is adjacent to a small property. And again, at the request of the neighborhood, the wrong button again. There has been a brick return that the staff asked for, and then an additional screening area installed. These are the other elevations, which are similar. They will have balconies. These are not recessed. And some renderings to look at in parking area. So, the staff is recommending that preliminary review be granted, subject to final review of plans and external materials. We are willing to, we understand that there really isn't a model example that can be identified for this particular property type. We think that it is very reflective of mid and late 19th century industrial buildings. So given that, I believe that the Lafayette Square representative is here and will make her own statement. Any questions?
We have two people signed up to speak, Suzanne Sessions and Tom McGraw.
Do you want to talk to Tom because he's the architect?
If you have questions, I'll ask.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Sessions, and I live at 1831 Kennan Place, and I'm representing the Development Committee of Lafayette Square tonight. Yes, tonight.
It's still tonight.
We have now seen 5 presentations from the developer and the architects for this plan. This is very difficult because of the fact this is the last large undeveloped area that we have in the business district of Lafayette Square. And so it's very important that we get something that people will at least accept. Chris Goodson owns this property, and he has every right to build on it the way he sees fit, as long as it fits the development committee and the code for Lafayette Square. When it was first presented, the model examples given were Squires and Wireworks, and I have passed around copies, photocopies that were given to us at that time. There was also a talk of an earlier building, but no pictures could be found of it. And so based on that, we have been focusing in on Squires and Wireworks as to be able to make this happen. There are problems with no matter what's done, and as Jane Cameron said, there is no good, perfect model example to do a 19th century factory replica with first floor, glass front windows, because technically that's what the urban plan calls for the development committee. So we are making a concession, as it were, after 5 times. I don't know that we're going to get this any better. If you feel that we are, that's fine. We'll be happy to relent on this. I think that it's important to understand that it doesn't need a historic model example because it's commercial and that. But what it does need, it needs to fit the commercial area and feel a part of it. That's in our code. And so, because of the fact historic model examples were brought to us, we have followed through on that every time we've seen them. And so that's why they're there, and I'm passing them out tonight. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is, that there will be no parking for the residents and the business people in the area. But Chris has that right. He's owned that property, he's taken care of it for 10 years, he's paved it, and so that's his to do with what he wants. The development committee just is here to make sure that we get something that fits the code and that everybody can live with. And so that's basically what I have to say. You're welcome.
Tom McGraw.
After I didn't sign up, I'm going to speak on that.
Tom McGraw's going to pass.
Okay. I don't we have any questions for you.
Well, if I got a microphone, I wait 3 hours, I've got to talk.
Just for every minute you talk, you lose 1 vote.
Yes. I want to thank the board and you and looking at this and address Suzanne's questions on the parking lot. Suzanne's been very helpful on the guidance on this. Originally, I was going to put a suburban-style Walgreens here. That's the switch.
One certain building.
Right. No, it's been a parking lot I've owned for 20 years, Suzanne, and originally bought all those vacant buildings, and I know you, Richard, and David knows, I did City Hospital, many other properties on Park Avenue. The goal was to fill those up with bodies, and then take these vacant lots and fill them up. That
Live bodies.
Live bodies. Well, there's a few dead ones buried there, but this and David probably knows about that. The building across the street that I had Lawrence Group design, 10 years ago, was the first infill. These were diesel oil lots. Originally, it was a dairy factory. The concept here was to make it look like the factories that were there originally and kind of model in Wireworks, not Boris model, Suzanne, I know.
You got it.
But putting that in there. Been filling up the vacant lots, Fields Foods in my development, the AT Still, all those other projects, so.
What's going in front of Fields Food?
That's a Tim Hortons. So we're going to put Tim Hortons, which is,
Is that the biggest one in the world?
it is going to be.
That's a huge Tim Hortons.
About 2,400 square feet, and it'll be a good mix between Fields and the other place next to it, which is a Walgreens, I think, and Hortons. So, but again, just building on that density, we need more bodies down there. Businesses struggle on Park Avenue like any other street, on Grand, on Shenandoah, all these little neighborhoods need more density down here. I've given that parking lot to the neighborhood for free for 20 years simply because we had to get off the ground and off our backs. We're slowly there, but we're going to continue to go forward and be a gem in the neighborhood. We got to have more people down here. So that's the goal here. Appreciate your consideration here. Anything you need to tweak on, open to that. But Suzanne's been helpful. The development committee's been good. Didn't beat me up too bad. But anyway, that's all I say. Lincoln did it. Get his address on a minute 43, so I'll be quiet at a minute 43.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Bustamante, do you have a motion?
I'd like to move that the board grant preliminary approval to proposed new construction with stipulation that details and specifications are submitted to the Cultural Resources Office for review and final plans, and exterior materials are approved by the Cultural Resources Office.
I second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing that. I know for the record, again, the Commissioner Richardson had recused himself from discussion and voting on this matter. There's a motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion is approved. Commissioners, we will now reconvene to hear appeals of denials, note the presence of a quorum, and call agenda item C, 1901 Charity Street.
Mr. Chairman, you still have a quorum if I refuse.
I do. Thank you. Okay.
You good? Yep.
Okay, I'm Bob Bettis with staff, and I will tell the truth. I did enter in ordinances 64689 as amended by 64925, and also 59836, which is the Cherokee Left Historic District ordinance. Cherokee Street. A few months back, the owner of the property applied for a permit to do exterior work on the property, which included some porch work, some work to the windows, as well as some work to the basement windows. There's a neat old building. Went out and look at it, to, get a sense of the property before we delve into the review, and noticed that unfortunately some of the work began without permits. Specifically, what had taken place was the infilling of the 5 basement windows and pouring of a large slab along the left side of the property, which you kind of see in this picture. So I'll do some more photographs of the site in context, but very focusing on these 5 basement windows as well as the kind of the porch slab in front is the issue. So here's the property in question. This is on the length facing the property. And again, here's the site. The property is set back from Cherokee Street. The building predates 1865. It's on the Compton Dry map. It's one of the oldest gems in Benton Park neighborhood and also part of the Cherokee Historic District. Here is that photograph. Sorry, this picture from the Compton Dry. You can see, if you look back at the photograph, how there's been a kind of a change to the street height over the years. Kind of see here how the street's kind of grown up a little bit. And originally, you had a kind of exposed basement level. This is the site prior to work. And so, as you can see, it's hard to tell. I apologize. These are from Google Maps, so bear with me. There's a few shots here that these are all we have in terms of older photographs prior to the work that was completed. We can see you do have original windows down below in these window wells. So it's kind of neat, actually, if you think about it. As the history of the building kind of lost that basement floor, the owners had the wherewithal to at least install a window well to kind of keep that historic feature in place. So you had the original wood windows that are still there, and they were in rough shape, but still you had that original feature still in place. And this is the existing condition. The slab was poured without a permit, and as you can start to see, the windows at the level of the basement here, they were infilled. They were infilled on the inside, the sill was brought up, and they actually poured inside to raise the level of the window to that newly poured slab. And some more shots, you can kind of get a sense of where the sill is now. With the sill now, before it was below, much below the line of the landing. Some more shots just showing now the current height. And there's a close-up shot showing what's taking place. So again, the sill was raised and the inside was even filled up to fill up those holes to match the line of the newly poured slab. So we've lost 5 really important features of this building that existed prior to 1865. Again, windows that were stuck in window wells over the years, but still were intact and were still street visible. As you can see by the shot, once you clear the brush away, go back to the original shot just to show you, they were visible from the street. And granted, over the years, stuff had grown up, but you could still see them from the street. We met with the applicant, Mr. Pointer, a few weeks back. Jan and I met with Mr. Pointer, and said, can you at least cut window wells back into, the area and return the window heights to the original configuration? And the answer was, well, he would prefer to try and come to the board, try to get variance to keep. The issue he states is that there's water runoff issues that can be rectified by, drains inside the wells, a French drain that runs a little further towards the left side to catch that water along the drains in the wells. So there were other options out there to keep water from coming in, which his main concern is that water's coming against the foundation. So there were other options when we did propose that to him, so he just chose to come to seek a variance.
Don't we have more photos than that?
I'm sorry, I'm still getting there, sorry. So here again, there's more shots showing the windows. These are older from Google. Again, you can see what we had before. The windows went deep in the ground, but they're still visible from the street, as you can see there. Arched windows, and to the right, the current configuration. We've lost a tremendous amount of height. The new slab was poured 7 or 8 inches high, and you lost a step on the porch because the slab was poured so high up. And again, here's kind of a shot looking down into the well, showing the arched windows again, and in a rougher shape, but of course, still that configuration. To the right is the proposal that they're putting forth, putting in an arched window, but again, much, much smaller. As you can see, that the size of the opening is extremely small, and doesn't have, again, that appearance that it was originally. Deep windows, street visible. Again, it's a major loss to the building. It's an unfortunate thing. It's been there since 1865. It was seen by the time they died. The ordinance specifically says that you should maintain these details. It says specifically you should maintain their size, detail, configuration. Same with windows. They needs to maintain the same size, horizontal and vertical configuration as the original height and opening. So this obviously goes against the ordinance, and it's a pretty big loss in the staff. We do have a letter of support for the applicant from the alderperson, Alderman Wortman. That's the record. Jane, anything else you want to add? So staff recommends that you uphold the denial of the permit as the alterations do not comply with Cherokee local historic district standards. I instruct the appellant to restore the basement windows to original configuration and appearance.
Questions? Thank you. Okay, let's have the appellant. Thank you so much for your patience.
No, no.
This is a longer meeting than we usually have, but not the longest meeting we've ever had.
I actually want to hand some things out to you. Here's some signatures supporting, and then these all have. Thank you very much. My name is Paul Pointer.
And your address?
3301 Demco Place. I'm in the same block as this property, same 100 block. I live and work in this area. Everything I do is within a golf cart run of this area. And first off, I wanted to apologize to Jan and her office and Bob and to this committee for getting ahead of this permit. I've been known to be anxious. There were some scheduling issues, health and issues and weather issues that were coming up, and I made a mistake. And I wanted to apologize that in advance. I mentioned that to Jan at the site, and as we were discussing this, you know, the picture that you see on right now that's showing really is taken from a little higher. It really doesn't show. I've got some pictures there for you. The cover sheet there, I'm kind of look at my own list here. And there were really two scenarios working here. One was the water. We're still trying to get ahead of the mold that's in that basement. The foundation itself was so deteriorated that it was devoid of any mortar at all. It was just really a dry stack basement. And water was setting on the floor. So we did have a water issue. Because this property sits back from the street, it sits almost in a hole. The street, the sidewalks, everything's been raised over the decades. And so we did have the issue with the water. The biggest problem we probably had in trying to solve this problem was the fact that there were trees and large pfitzers planted in these window wells. Planted right in them. So it wasn't on the ground level where you can handle taking a root out or pulling a trunk out. It was down in the window well. So hopefully the pictures I have here show that. The cover sheet that's stapled together, now that picture is taken in Zillow, so that's a few years ago. You can tell because the tree on the street there is a little smaller than some of the other pictures. Anyway.
Finally a good use for Zillow.
And then picture number one is a little confusing there, but that picture was actually part of the sales contract the real estate agents had, so that's fairly new. Even though it's a little foggy, you can look beyond the porch and see how high that cedar tree is on the other side. These cedar trees were 15 feet tall. Their trunks were 8 to 10 inches wide inside the window well. They had completely demolished the window well. You couldn't really discern whether it was made of brick, old concrete, or stone. We considered a French drain and some other scenarios to control the water. But you'd have to go so far down into the ground, below the real ground level, to try and eradicate the roots, all along the front of the building. It was a nightmare scenario. So it's not just the water, as the papers mentioned, it's the water and how to control that, get it away from that building. And I couldn't agree with Bob more. I know how historical this neighborhood is. I deal with it all the time. I appreciate it. And that's why I apologize to this board, because I respect what this board has to do, and Jan's office, and how important it is. I love these old buildings. My partners are both from the county.
And I told them I wouldn't go into business unless we bought in the city, period. You can see on page 4, the windowsills were completely rotted away, so I put new stone windowsills in there. Then you can see with the new woodwork in on the windows, instead of a French window with 4 panes, it's only going to be 2 panes. I know Bob mentioned we lost a step there. You can see that on page number 5, where the new concrete goes up to the bottom step. So it's about 7 to 8 inches. He's right on how high that is. I just happened to walk around after I met with Jan and Bob, and I knew this was an old building. Remember page 6? It's on the Compton and Dry also. And I just walked over there and I looked down, yeah, a similar scenario, and I'm not advocating this. My scenario might have been different than theirs. I don't know that. But they had a water problem too. And they put in glass block and just filled it in at some time in the last who knows how long. But because that building sits back, just like 1901, they had a similar scenario where the water was moving toward the building and the foundation, and they had to control it. So I'm here to ask for your help and ask for an appeal to the denial so that I can put in the 2-pane French windows and retain this raised sidewalk along the foundation of the building. Thank you.
Based upon your reading of our ordinances, what would be the grounds you suggest for us to offer a variance?
I think, Mr. Callow, that's a great question. And I might have to leave that to your genius. I mean, I would think, you know, from my standpoint, even though I apologize for my procedure here and what I've done, I stand by the decision to do it. The roots and the trunk was a near impossibility, and I did a lot of crazy hard work. But it wasn't making sense in the sense that, yes, we have to save these buildings. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. 2 buildings in that block were torn down in the last 6 months. A major 6-family flat was torn down a month ago. 1 month, only in that same block. A gorgeous mansard roof was, man, it was a gorgeous building. I sat there and watched them tear it down. So I don't know that this building was in danger of falling down. I don't know if it was there. I mean, one of the pictures you have shows the right side of the roof caving completely in. We fixed that. Foundation was completely loose. So, I don't know, it had a few more years in it. The south wall on Cherokee was completely falling out. It completely gave away from the wall. We had to rebuild that one completely. So, I don't know how to answer your question, I'm sorry. I mean, other than, you know, the compromise that I'm trying to make between renovation, I own a lot of buildings now, I live down there, and making sense of the history. It's a balancing act. That's why this is a really hard job that the Cultural Resources Office has, because I know it needs to maintain the absolute, and then from there we have to decide where we stop to compromise and make sense for the developers and the homeowners and some people that have very, very little money. I'll be honest with you, we don't have much money for this project, but there's other people that have very little money and still want to be involved in this and help, you know, make their houses better.
Commissioner Visitano, what do you call the kind of engineer that you call to ask how to make the water stop coming in?
Could be civil or probably be civil engineer.
Did you consult a civil engineer?
I did not, sir.
Questions, commissioners?
How long have you owned the building?
Since March, sir.
And so you're rehabbing it into what, residential?
We're planning to do it, that's single family home, yes.
So you'll eventually then sell it when you're done?
My plans are not to sell it.
Okay.
Yeah, I live in the neighborhood, and if someone wanted to buy the house and wanted to further it, yeah, and the numbers were right, and it was the right thing to do, then I would sell it, yes.
So are you getting historic tax credits on it?
No, sir. Not interested in that.
And the picture
Is that like a stab in your heart, David?
the picture that had the, Bob has a picture with no trees there, and you have a picture with trees. When did the trees go out?
So, okay. So, oh, when did the trees go out? We cut them out.
Okay.
Yeah, so the pictures that they have from Cultural Resource don't, as an example, it says site prior to work. Not really. That's not site prior to work. This is site prior to work, your cover sheet. Now, it sort of is, to some degree, obviously before we started some of the work, but we had to clear all of those trees out. A nightmare scenario. Who would plant those trees in those windows?
So prior to March of 2016, I probably couldn't see the windows because there are big cedar trees there?
No, sir, no one even knew those windows were there at all for 30, maybe 40 years.
Excuse me, I did.
Well, some people that are very good at that. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, Jim.
If I may, there are several shots on Google that date back like 2011, maybe even 7, we tried doing the drive-arounds. I mean, you could see it. I mean, there was less growth. You could definitely see the windows themselves. There was a larger one, I will admit, there was a larger one on the far right window. That would have grown somewhat, but you could still see their windows.
We're going to have to just agree to disagree.
Yes, sir.
You could not see those windows. It was a nightmare of shrubbery. I mean, I can't believe that that would matter necessarily, but it was a nightmare of shrubbery and trees, fir trees and fitzers. I think she did it to protect her home. I don't know. It was planted right along the side of the building, way too close in general for planting. And somebody that knows the historic nature of these buildings, Jan, and obviously you, Bob, would know. I did work out in front of them. See, we've done a lot of work, and I stand up there and talk to people. I didn't even know that was there. I didn't even, all of these people constantly every day saying these kind of things. So I don't know what that really matters necessarily.
Jan, do you have testimony you'd like to offer? I'm sorry. No.
Yeah.
Good. Stay put.
Yes.
Those shots are, that's not those shots.
My name is Jan Cameron of the Cultural Resources Office. I promised to tell the truth. We obviously had no photographs in our office of the building prior to work going on. But we looked at the Google, which went down to what, 2007?
They're not in here.
They're not in here?
Okay.
And there, it was very obvious that the windows were there. Yes, there were bushes in front of them, but if you looked at it from the side, you could certainly see the windows. And you could see them very clearly from the sidewalk. So,
Here's the Google.
I don't know what Mr. Pointer is talking
No,
about.
you have one with you. I actually gave you a Google. And you can see the shrubbery is absolutely covering that building.
But this is a shot from Google. Because I took this myself as a screenshot. So I think it's pretty evident that you can see those windows, right?
Okay, we have heard evidence in both directions on this. We have photographs, and we will make a decision on that. Is there anything else you'd like to add to your case, sir? Commissioners, questions? I'm sorry. Bob, anything you want to add?
Just to clarify, staff feels that because have been around since 1865, and the loss is big deal. We think it's important. It's a bad precedent, and again, we understand you felt the need to do the work prior to permits, but this is a bad precedent to allow this to stay and lose these features. It's unfortunate.
This is beyond the scope of your work. Do you believe that there is an engineering solution for the water?
I think to my house, we have 3 wells, and in each well is drained. I'm sure if we study a way to install a French drain along with, getting the wells back and installing drains there, you can drain into a central drain into the basement area and go out to the street. There has to be a way to get that water out besides just sloughing it back towards the sidewalk. There has to be another way. Thank you.
That concludes the testimony in this matter. The appellant has made his case. Staff has made its case. Commissioner, have you a motion for us?
I move that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial of the alterations as they do not comply with the Cherokee County Local Historic District standards, and instruct the appellant to restore the basement windows to their original appearance.
Is there a second to this?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Commissioner Byzantine, would you start with the discussion?
Yeah, I just have a comment. I don't know, he hasn't gotten bids or anything, but I think probably this would be a pretty expensive undertaking to do this. But
Are engineers like architects, when they say pretty expensive, they mean very expensive?
yes. But, I think the real problem, and I've seen this in a few other places, is in many cases there's been an alley installed or a street change, and they raised the grades and caused all kinds of drainage problems to and into buildings. And those were done many years ago or whenever. And unfortunately, a lot of those issues should have been addressed at that time, because they created problems with those buildings when they raised that street. That's just a comment.
Do you think that was the case here?
Yeah. When you look at the picture, the original Compton Drive, it looks like the street's considerably lower. And it got raised, and they did probably, raised it, then it sloped the ground probably towards the building.
Commissioner Richardson?
I just think it's a dangerous precedent if we overturn the staff on this one without any economic hardship.
I sort of feel the same way. I wish someone else, it's going to be our, terrible financial investment to make it right.
And that one's a terrible financial investment. That's a big deal.
But I agree about the precedent. I mean, we just,
Right? You're Mr. Common Sense.
It's going to cost a little bit more. Yeah.
Didn't you once take an entire house down and do it again?
I did. That cost a lot of money. This is going to cost substantially less than that, but yeah. However, having said that, I do believe that this sets a bad precedent, and at this point, what's remaining of the windows might as well not even be windows. There's just not enough currently there to even bother with keeping the windows if that were the case.
That concludes our discussion on this matter. There is a motion on the floor. It has been made and seconded to require a roll call vote. Commissioner Byzantine, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Fackman, do you vote yes or no?
yes.
That was a very sad yes. Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
That is 4 yeses. The motion is upheld and the appeal is denied. Commissioners, we're now going to convene in closed session if I can hear the motions to do so.
Well, it needs, we need to cite the appropriate section of the ordinance.
I move that we go into closed session to discuss legal actions, cause of actions, or litigation, or other confidential privileged communications with attorneys or auditors as provided by 610.021 subsection 1.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, I need to call a roll for this. Commissioner Backman, you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Whittington, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, we will go into closed session. If you turn the camera off for a second. Okay, commissioners, is there any further business? Nope. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. There's no discussion. We stand adjourned. Commissioners, thank you, staff.